Hey, good evening, midnight listeners. You are listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton, and I am coming to you live from the Nature Coast. Oh, it's going to be one of those nights. I will have to tell you, you might want to grab your crucifix, grab your Bible, get whatever religious object you might own, and keep it close. That's right. A little bit later, we are going to be bringing on the air author, New York Bestselling author, Debbie Viguie. I hope I say that right. You know, for those that know me, know that my early days in radio was cut abruptly short because I could not pronounce people's last names. I don't know if you guys ever heard that story, but when I was going to college, I interviewed for a job at the Middle Tennessee State University radio station and got accepted. Problem is that they played a lot of jazz, smooth jazz, and a lot of foreign music, which led to be a lot of foreign musicians. And one thing you learn very quickly, especially when you're at a university that specializes and has the reputation as Middle Tennessee State University. I'm going to say that again. Who knows? I might be able to get a scholarship there. I don't think they want me back. You might be able to, I just had a complete brain aneurysm there. No, going back to working at the station. So you know, Middle's known for its music program, recording industry management, all of that stuff. So they're very well known for that. And some of the professors there are very, very knowledgeable especially in the music industry. So these guys, like I said, you know, most of the musicians that I was probably playing their music, there was probably professors who wrote dissertations on those musicians. And I just had a problem pronouncing the last names. So I'd get this phone call. So I would, you know, be sitting there and be doing the outros and the intros and introducing the you know, the music and the musicians and doing all that. And then all of a sudden I get a, you know, phone call. This is Professor so-and-so. That is actually pronounced blah. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. So that was my first real foray in the music as a radio DJ. It didn't last long. I can tell you that right there. And I had no desire covering sports. I was not a sportscaster. I can't imagine, you know, you pass the ball, catch the ball. That would be my sportscasting ability. Yeah, he passed the ball over that guy over there, and that short guy's running down there. He's pretty quick, but he's short. Doesn't have a future in the NBA, but he's doing pretty good. He's here on a full ride scholarship, though. Get a great education. That's what I would do. I couldn't memorize names. For some reason, you know, people have these mental blocks. And when you and I have mine is names. I have mental blocks with names. There's certain words too that no matter I you know, I can read them 1,000 times. I can read them 1,000 times, and I still can't pronounce the word correctly. You guys have that? You ever had that experience? And, you know, I don't know what it is. Don't know what it is. So Debbie will be joining us. Let's get on the little matters at hand. Debbie's going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour. I look forward to this conversation. This is going to be a good one. Like I said, make sure you have whatever is going to make you feel good, safe, and secure. You have it next to you, because it's going to be a ride. In the housekeeping notes, as I look up here, I'm just kind of checking levels and stuff, you know, those guys that are out there in the YouTube land. All right. I just want to make sure that we sound good. We are expecting our new piece of equipment to come here tomorrow. So I'll stop asking you those questions. It's supposed to remedy all of our problems, right? You know, Only if we could fix the host, right? No, it's all right. It's all good. It's all good. We got to laugh. Life is too short not to laugh. We deal with some pretty serious subjects. Talk about serious subjects last night. Wow. Incredible. And you know, another one of those just knockdown shows. 6 hours. Yeah. 6 hours. You know, for those that were listening last night, yes, I am not wearing my fedora. I do have it here, but I tend to forgot one important thing. Can't wear a fedora and wear a headset. Kind of crushes it. So I'm sporting the alien with the see-through. Yep, that's right. It is true. I have confirmed that something that my friends and family and daughters have been saying for a long time. There is nothing between my ears. If you're watching on video, you'll learn not to wear a green alien hat in front of a green screen. Nah, I did that on purpose. I knew exactly. But yeah, so those on YouTube, it's kind of interesting watching that. But no, it's going to be a very interesting show, like I said. And what's going to make it interesting, not only the guests, but your participation. If you guys have questions, we will open the phone lines. We will allow you to speak with the guest, ask your questions, and everything. So that is going to be a good time. One of the other things, tea with Punjab, public speaking dyslexia. I think I probably picked the wrong career to be in then. No, it's all about communication. You know, that's what it is. Just having a good conversation. I'll stress that. That's the success. If you are a up and coming podcaster, newscaster, radio guy gal who wants to do this, you know, you got to learn some of the best things that I've ever learned in this business. And from people that told me, because I'm still learning, still young, is that you have to communicate. In other words, you know, you got to have a conversation, not communication. Sorry. You got to have a conversation. You can't just communicate. Communicate is verbal, blah, 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 blah. You got to have a conversation with people. And that includes listening. But that's enough of the broadcast lesson 101. Let's do a little housekeeping here. Obviously, if you're joining us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our channel. I also found out that from last night, some of you guys, I appreciate the knowledge transfer that you guys did with me. It's not that you have to subscribe, but there's also a setting in the little wheel that says get alerted when new shows come up. So do that as well. That helps us. If you're on Facebook, if you like to use that social media site, you know, make sure that you become a midnight listener. That's one way that you can communicate. As we grow show, and this goes to the conversation that we had last night that I'll get to in a little bit, some suggestions from that. So let me finish this part, which is our social media and selfless promotion. If you use Twitter, if you tweet, make sure that if you want, you can tweet TMO guest, hashtag TMO guest and TMO host, and we watch those throughout the day. And also my Twitter handles at the MN Ocean. Follow us there as well. I promise you, you know, with social media, you know, one of the things that drives me nuts is all the junk. I have no desire to feed your fish or to grow carrots in Farmville or what, any of those things. All the spam too. We won't spam you. I promise you. I am not going to add to the spam collection. We will definitely promise you that. So get out there, join those pages, but it's a way for us to communicate. As I said earlier, if you join the Midnight Listeners group, as we grow, and this show is growing, we are, you know, in especially in the YouTube land and everything, we're probably going to reach our 100 subs this month. That's 100 subs in the first month. That's our goal. I think we're at 41, 42. We're going to do, you know, I'm confident. I think we're going to get close. From there, as you guys know, especially you YouTube guys, it grows exponentially from there. So with that, what that means to you is that when you finally do decide that you want to call in and participate, and this is a participation show, but it is optional. It's not mandatory. But when you do want to call in on the normal phone lines that we give out, we're only going to have, 10 to 20 lines open. It's going to get filled up pretty quick. For a lot of you guys that are familiar with late night radio, you can go years before talking to the legendary Art Bell. Years. I mean, my story, I started listening to him in the mid 90s, and I finally got through to him a couple months ago when he came back, and unfortunately I had my Skype jacked up and I couldn't talk to him. And I'm just saying, don't let that happen to you. Because as a member of Midnight listeners, you will be given a number that you can use. Now, as you grow in the Midnight listeners, God, I feel like I'm selling you Amway. We're going to make diamonds out of you. You're going to become a diamond. No, as I get to know you and stuff, we will move you into the Midnight Pirates. That's right. The Midnight Pirates. What is the Midnight Pirates are? Those are friends and family and people who I would probably give my house keys to and not think about it. So once again, there will be a phone number that will be provided to them. Now, of course, we will take care of our new callers, our old callers, but yeah, we'll see you guys in the queue and we'll try to get to you a little bit quicker. So it's just our way of saying thank you for being, part of the original launch of the show, promoting us and helping us grow this thing. Now is not the time to be selfish either. I actually had a person say, why would I tell people about your show? Because I like calling in, and once I tell people about your show, then it's going to get jammed and I won't be able to call in and talk to you. Well, it's kind of like this. We have certain business objectives that we have to meet or the show doesn't progress. That's right. So, yeah, you can not tell your friends about us and help promote our show. And I don't know how long we can run with a few hundred listeners a night on radio and also on the thing. So no, we're growing. We are growing. I'm confident you put out a good product and you will get a great following. So that was with the housekeeping news. Now, one of the other things that we have done, and I don't know, and those that, like I said, are members of the Midnight Listener Group, I will kick this up and show you guys there on YouTube. Those that are not on YouTube, this is one reason why I do like YouTube versus, just the radio, because it gives us a little bit of visual. Not on YouTube. This is one reason why I do like YouTube versus, just the radio, because it gives us stop that just in case we got echoes there and thing. It's the problem that you learn is when you bring up a page, if the audio's running, it will echo. So for those radio listeners, you didn't hear that, but for you YouTube guys, you did. Is we have started a new program here. One of the things, we want to do, obviously, is we discuss fringe topics, paranormal topics. We want to hear your stories. We want to experience those. We think that they need to get out. It's very important that people hear these things. And I know a lot of people don't like to get because they're embarrassed or they don't think they have the voice or they're nervous or whatever. I get it. So what we've done is we've given you the ability, you can submit your story to the Midnight Ocean. I will read it on the air verbatim. So what that means is whatever you put in the story, I'm going to read. So if you don't want to use your real name, change the name. You don't want to use your last name, change the name, because I will read what's submitted within reason, right? I don't want to, this is not a penthouse forum or anything like that. I'm not interested in that. There's whatever. No need to even talk about it than what I already did. But if you have a legitimate story or something that's happened to you in the paranormal, send it to us. So what you can do is you click on a link here on our page now. It's in the bright red bar. You can't miss it. Can't make it any more obvious than that. And then you submit your story through email to us. Now, what's really nice, the reason why we went with the email instead of a submit form is that you can actually type your story up in Word and attach it as a Word document, and then we can read it. I know a lot of you are like, oh, just do the post there. No, we're doing that for a couple of reasons, for, virus screen, because we will read it through our Gmail account on Gmail. We'll keep the viruses on the Gmail servers and not bring them over to ours. So that's a new feature, and I just want to let Possum 1010 know, thank you. That was outstanding. That was a great suggestion that she had last night, and it is something that we are definitely going to implement. So I look forward to seeing your stories. We will, of course, because you do email, we will let you know when we're going to read your stories on the air, and you can join us. The other thing too is because, when we read the stories, and you can tell us about your experience, your personal experience. If you like, you can call in as well. And, I'll read your story and you can call in. We'll talk about it. I think that's a great idea. That was an awesome idea that we had last night. Thanks once again, Possum 1010. For those that don't know, you got to join us in the chat room. That's the other thing too. If you want to chat with us right now, the only chat client that I use, I don't have a Whirlpool. I think Art called it the wormhole. I don't have a Whirlpool set up. So I know some people have hinted at setting one up for us, so you can chat directly with me on the air. But the best way to do it is in the chat room. If you go out to YouTube, Google, or YouTube, search it. Well, YouTube's owned by Google. So search the Midnight Ocean, and we'll be glad to chat with you. You can watch the video of the show as well. So that's why we use YouTube. I know, like I said, got a little criticism from my radio buddies who said, Jeff, you're in radio. You're not in YouTube. And to be honest with you, I definitely don't have a face for video, but it is what it is. The sacrifices we take. Oh, woe is me. No, I have a good time. I think you're missing out a little bit on the show if you don't watch the video, to be honest with you. Because I have I've gone back. I mean, we do air checks, what we call air checks in the business. And, we listen, to make sure that we're doing the things we need to do, working on cutting out dead words like, and, and stuff like that. So we do listen to the air checks. Now, the problem is I can't air check myself in video because I'm too busy looking at my reactions to things. I do some pretty stupid things with my eyes. I've noticed that. Now, one of the things I will have to stress, though, is that I am not a complete moron. As you see me looking around. No, I will tell you, I've got about 6 screens in front of me now, and the big master control is right up there. So I'm looking, that's what holds the clock and the show information. So I'm always looking at that to make sure I hit my marks, my cues. That's why I'm always looking up. You'll see me looking up. And also the audio, the audio codecs that push out over the internet are up there. So yeah, I'm not that nutty. But one of the other things that we are going to be doing or implementing here is we are working on a new system that will allow our guests to have a little bit better video conferencing with us. And I do apologize to our other guests. We used Skype in the past. The problem with Skype is that you are on the same line as millions of other people, bandwidth wise. So the quality is just horrible. That's why we switched over to the phone lines, back to the phone lines, because we get better quality there. But we are working with a group of developers who are actually building a video conferencing system that's dedicated just for us. So that's going to be exciting. So because I like having our guests doing video conferencing. Some of the other things too is that we are working with a broadcast supply warehouse, BSW, and some of our other providers at upgrading our equipment in the near future. Not anytime soon. That's that whole we got to grow thing. But in the near future, we are making plans at adding a little bit better, I want to say audio equipment to, the audio I think is pretty outstanding compared to what I'm used to in radio, but it can be better. And we know that, and there's some other convenience things that we're going to do equipment wise that will make my life a little bit easier so I can focus on providing you guys with a great content and not so much having to worry about being a network administrator and monitoring everything. So, but tonight's going to be a great show. I cannot wait. I've been waiting for this one for a while. This is, when people said, "Hey, Jeff, what are you going to do when you come back on the air?" This is exactly what we're going to do. Now, of course, we're going to have the lighthearted conversations and of course, the, talking about angels and stuff. We're not going to get dark. That's not our intention. But we are going to have some pretty deep and also scary conversations. And this is one of them that's coming up here in a few minutes. But, I see some people coming in. We're giving them some time, and those that listen to the show know that 10:30, so that's usually when people come in. Now, in the news, I do want to, this is kind of bizarre. Right down the street from me in Ocala, Florida, there's a video of a supposed white orb during a thunderstorm. We've been having some tremendous thunderstorms here in Florida over the last couple weeks, about a week solid. And, it's rained pretty solid and it's been pretty violent around here lately. But out of Ocala, Florida, MUFON is reporting of a video of a UFO hovering in the sky and then disappearing. Now, a lot of people said, well, it's a drone. Well, I don't think it's a drone. And let me tell you why. It's in the middle of a thunderstorm. Drones aren't heavy enough. A civilian drone, the one you buy at the store, are not heavy. And I have enough experience with them to know that they are not heavy enough that they can go up that high in the sky where the video's taken from. High in the sky. Should be a song. Lucy in the sky. No, that's a different song. But, they won't be able to sustain flight. Airplanes have a hard enough time sustaining flight in thunderstorms. So I don't think it's a drone. It could be, and I thought because, we are pretty close to the Gulf here. Ocala, I should say, is pretty close to the Gulf. They're about 40 miles off the Gulf. There's an airport there. They do have a lot of helicopter traffic, Coast Guard traffic, things of that nature. It could be a Coast Guard. But one of the things I noticed in the video is that it didn't have its running lights, which if you could see its landing lights, and that's what I would think it was, is that you're looking at its landing lights, you would still be able to see, even in the halo effect of that light, you would still be able to see its running lights. The FAA is pretty particular about that stuff. Just because your landing lights are on doesn't mean you can't see the running lights. So get out there and look at it MUFON. But you're listening to Jeff Norton, the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. When we get back, we're going to bring on our special guest tonight, New York award-winning best-selling author Debbie Viguié. And we're not going to be talking about her books. No. I'm sure we'll mention it, but we'll be back in a few.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That's right, Andrew. It is Jeff Norton, and I am on Paranormal State Radio Network. And you are listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. Possum, I'm putting this on just for you. You guys on YouTube would know. I know you came a little bit late to the party. It's okay. So I know I promised you. I want to make sure I'm a man of my promise that I wear my fedora. I am wearing my fedora. I had one small hiccup today, though. I couldn't wear the fedora and wear my headphones. So there you go. I got it on. It falls off. A little humor there. That's just for our midnight listener, Possum 1010, who's there in the chat room. That was just for you. And all of the other ones that were on last night that I promised I would wear a fedora. I will get a an earbud system so that we can do those kind of things instead of the Mad Hatter. There, the Midnight Hatter. There you go. So a little levity before we get a little bit of serious. Like I said, folks, families, this probably might not be a conversation that you want your kids to be listening to, your children. We're going to not be inappropriate, but we're going to be talking about demonology and exorcisms. It's a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Not saying that I need an exorcism. Maybe a demonologist every once in a while. I, have a few every once in a while. I get that little evil streak in me. But tonight's special guest, we have Debbie Viguié. I hope she's going to tell me here in a second if I pronounce that correctly, or she will correct me. But so you guys know, Debbie is a New York Times best-selling author with over a dozen novels, including the Viguié series. Yes, my daughters don't know those. They were excited. I think they were more excited. I was excited. And then when they saw the show promos and everything on Facebook, they were like, oh my God. So Viguié series and the new Crusade series co-authored with Nancy Holder. So we'll talk about the books, of course. But much of Debbie's writing has a dark edge to it, including her retold fairy tales. Her latest being Violet Eyes, a retelling of The Princess and the Pea. There you go. In addition to her epic dark fantasy work, Debbie also writes thrillers including Psalms 23, Mysteries, and the upcoming Kiss trilogy. When Debbie isn't busy writing, she enjoys spending time with her husband, Scott, visiting theme parks, and they live in Florida. So she's a hometown girl here in the Sunshine State. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I actually said that without starting over my words. Debbie, are you there? Yes. There you go, Debbie. It would help if I hit the button on the board before I ask you if you're there.
That would be great.
Yeah.
It is so funny. I've been listening to you for the last 20 minutes, and it's been clear as a bell, and now I'm getting garbled noises. So
really,
you can hear me fine.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
And that is what happens. That is really, really. See, there you go. They don't want us talking.
It sounds.
They don't
I know.
want.
It sounds good. Well, I was praying about that just in case.
yeah. They don't want us to communicate. That we find, believe it or not, I find that more so than the case. So let me see here. I'm looking at the system. Is it still garbled?
It's sounding much better now.
Is it? I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I promise you, I didn't touch anything. Well, are you having the storms? I don't want, please don't tell everybody, because I will warn you, if you give anybody a hint to your general location, it would be like Pokemon Go. You will have people walking in your neighborhood looking for you. So, but have you been getting the storms that we've been getting here over on the Gulf side?
We should be, but our particular neighborhood somehow always gets passed by, which makes me angry because I love rain. So they go all around us, literally within 2 miles of every direction, and just not us.
Debbie, have you ever thought it might be you, considering what you do?
The thought has occurred because, similar things have happened to other places we lived. The first year we lived there, storm, and then nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. If it's following you from one part of the country to the other, we might need to look into that. No, we've been getting what's really funny is where we live, I said the same thing, is that it's weird because, and we're right, we're on the Gulf. So we're right on that boundary, and it will rain below us. It will rain above us. It will rain on the other side of the house. And then you go in the backyard and it's sun. I mean, that's typical Florida. And I was joking with Sandy. I'm like, something, they just don't want my yard to be, I am a yard nut. Sandy does all the work. So I'm a yard nut via Sandy, because she's the one that, let's be honest, I can't tell a lie. She is the one that does all the work. I'm just the one that complains about it when the grass isn't green. And you know, I call Scott's, or I call the lawn guy and say, get over here. But our lawns were just getting a beating, you know, because of the you know, heat and being dried out and stuff. So, you know, we're happy. It's nice and green now. We're all happy. Actually, right before the show, we were out listening to rain in the backyard.
Oh, nice.
Oh, it's incredible. Nothing like Florida. I tell people you need to move to Florida, and then when they move here, I go home. Go home. You're stinking up the place. No, that's bad. I'm a Yankee. So I'm one of the guys that's stinking up the joint. You know, I'm a Yankee.
Hey,
so
I'm a California girl.
Does anybody from Florida actually live in Florida?
No, absolutely not. I have only met one native Floridian in the entire 6 years I've been living here.
Well, I can actually say Sandy is a native. She was born and raised born in Florida, and then she moved. It was funny. It's a great story. I mean, she moved from Florida. Her mom and dad moved from Florida to Tennessee. My dad was served his country and retired from the Air Force, and then moved from, at that time we were stationed in Michigan, in Marquette in the Upper Peninsula, you know, 371 inches of snow annually. And then he decided he was going to move to Tennessee to try to get a job at a manufacturing company there, Nissan. And we met in high school. That's how we met. And we were the kids that were always unhappy, because I loved the great outdoors, living in the woods. She loved Florida, and our parents upped us and moved us right in the smack dab middle of Tennessee, which was culture shock, I should say. so
I would believe it.
Yeah. So no, she gave me 20 years. Gosh, you go back and it's just great. You know, when we decided to move to Chicago and everything, when I moved to Chicago originally, we weren't together the whole time, but we have that great love story. You know, I had to sell it to an author one of these days, and hint, no. We were apart, and then we came back together, and so. But the deal is that she would give me about 20 years, 15 years or whatever in Chicago, and then I'd have to give her the rest of my life in Florida, and it works out. I love it. I'm kicking myself for not moving here earlier.
Oh, so, good.
Yeah, you just got to invest in a lot of bug spray. That's the key.
That's true.
Yeah. Your allowance of deodorant and everything should be replaced with bug spray. That's it. It's like, why do you smell like a deep woods off?
Because I bought stock in the company.
Yeah. I live in Florida. That's it. You can tell who a Floridian is. They smell like deep woods off. Or what is it? Skin so soft. That's the key. Skin so soft. I love that. We have all these these manly men here in these shrimpers that are manly men, and they all got great skin. And it's like, why they use Skin So Soft? Because of the no-see-ums, the gnats around here. Everybody wears Skin So Soft. But oh my goodness, I know we did not talk about beauty tips and creams and lotions and potions and all of that stuff. that was
the scary thing for tonight.
that was the scary. You're seeing the sensitive side of Jeff Norton. No, hey, look, I have three wonderful girls and 2 grandbabies and a grandson. So when you grow up in a house full of girls, you learn to communicate and use terminology that most men would never admit to, It's one of those things. Like nowadays, it's like, yeah, whatever. I'll go, sir. What do you want? Before fathers, you never ask your daughters when you have to go to like Walgreens and stuff. It's like, I'm going to Walgreens. What do you want? And you never have those, those conversations. But now it's just like, what? Go ahead, whatever. It doesn't faze me anymore.
That's awesome.
Doesn't faze. So, let's first. I mean, obviously, I've got a couple questions I have to ask. When you became a New York Times bestseller, I mean, what is that feeling? Because, I have a lot of authors that listen to this show and are also obviously guests on the show, and they all aspire to be where you're at, right? They think that that's the cream of the cream, right? Or, creme de the creme is actually.
Right.
And is it everything that's cut out to be? Is it, or is it just overrated?
It's crazy. It's amazing and a little overwhelming, and things change dramatically in different ways. For example, I mean, I need to kick my webmaster because the bio you grabbed off my website is out of date. But I've got 4 dozen books in print, and I was used to putting out 4 or 5 books a year and had my own little schedule going. It was never missed a deadline. And the year we hit the New York Times bestseller list, everything changed because suddenly there were so many more demands on my time. Suddenly publishers were doing things like this. Your new book is coming out, and back when Borders was still a thing, Borders is going to do an email blast tomorrow about your book, and we need you to annotate chapter 1, kind of do it like, they do DVD commentary for the entire chapter 1, and we need it in the next 8 hours without warning. So suddenly your 8-hour day that you had planned to write on that other book just goes by the wayside, and you're just grateful that you were home in time to get that you were home at the moment the email came through. And so I ended up being late on every one of my deadlines for the next 12 months because I hadn't budgeted time for extra promotion and interviews and things like that.
Yeah.
So that was one of the most dramatic changes. Got to go to Comic-Con that summer, and I'd been to Comic-Con before, down in San Diego. And I'd spoken at Comic-Con and done signings at Comic-Con. I had never had a camera crew follow me around Comic-Con. And that changes your perspective a lot, especially when you finally get a day off and you go to see the people you wanted to go see, and people are standing there gawking at you, and you're like, I'm just here to see,
Yeah.
And then you're trying to get to see the person that you're desperately hoping to get an autograph from, but you're signing 100 autographs on your way, just hoping you don't miss the person you're going to see.
Yeah.
So it does change things a lot. It puts in a lot more pressure on as well. So it is great. I mean, it was the day that I got that phone call was one of the most shocking and exciting days of my life. I will tell you that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that, and I've always wondered that, is it overrated? Is it one of these things? I know obviously as you start rising, there's more and more demands on you. I'm grateful that, my all my neighbors think I'm in the witness protection program. They're still trying to figure out what I do.
That's awesome.
They don't know. It's like that guy is, he's home every day, and, what is he doing? And he doesn't, we don't see him until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And, it is funny though. I've had, with neighbors, I live in a, it's the South. So, well, I don't know. Floridians don't consider themselves Southerners. We're Floridians. But, when we first moved here, everybody came over and, being nosy, being friendly, but, being nosy. It is what it is. And, they ask, well, what do you do? What do you do? And, I fall back on, I just, write software. What I used to do before I do this. I don't tell people, because I live in a town where I don't think I'll do that. I'll have the Pokemon. I don't want to give too much description because it'll be like Pokemon outside my door. I actually had that problem when I had another style of podcast in Chicago that I did, which was very popular. And I had people literally coming and knocking on my door. They thought that was cool.
That's the nightmare, right?
Yeah, that is a nightmare. It's like, I love your fans and everything, but it's just one of these things that they don't realize that, this is a 4-hour thing and we got a life, and I can't be, hanging out with people that I don't know, especially guys that like guns. So
there you go. But, I mean, it does get a little strange. Before living in Florida, we lived in Hawaii for a few years. And it was a very small town kind of culture, and everybody knew where everyone lived, including the celebrities on island.
Yeah.
But fortunately, because it was a very protective kind of culture,
Yeah.
although everybody knew where the celebrities lived, nobody told the visitors where
no
the
one
celebrities lived. They just tell them, you tell them what part of the island, but not, which house, whereas, everybody knew, which house I lived in, and I never thought anything about it until I was at a book signing, and I was starting to leave, and the manager came up to me and said, you should know that some people are stealing like the water bottles and the trash that you just tried to throw away because they're going to put it on eBay. And I'm like, oh, they know where I live. And that literally that night, it was so funny. That night, we had like this lofted house, so that there was like the house was up on stilts, and all of a sudden I hear the trash can getting knocked over downstairs, and I'm like, oh no. Yep. Please no. Please let me not go down there and find people rooting around for stuff to sell on eBay. And I'm like, I look at my husband. He's like, I'm not going down there.
It's the only time that you wish it was a raccoon, or something of that nature.
Exactly.
You're like, please be an iguana.
The hilarious part, the hilarious part was I got down there and I had the flashlight and I was all ready. I had my cell phone and it was a cat. I'm like, oh, thank heavens. And I'm like, when we move next time, I got to stop telling people where I live.
Yeah. And I almost gave you some details, and let it slip. But, we are in, where we're at, we are in the South. You're in the heart of the Bible Belt anyways. And my concern, besides, having just the wacky nut jobs, is having the real religious people, especially with topics that we're going to be talking about tonight, going, oh, that, because there are people that say, you don't even mention the devil. You mention the devil and let alone talk about, exorcisms and stuff like that. They'll be praying at your doorstep and they'll have 24/7 vigils for you. So,
oh, geez.
Yeah, no, it's
part of the conspiracy asylum.
It is. And, and the thing is too, now I will have to say one thing is about my neighborhood, the sheriff literally parks. Sometimes he'll park right next to our house to catch the speeders, but at night he parks right down the street from us. And then on top of that, all my neighbors are nuts and they all have guns. And so I have the best security force here. I mean, you can't get within, 100 yards of my house without someone coming out and asking you who you are. You don't belong here.
What you're doing there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the only, you're funny when they come up to you and, you're in a small community when they come up to you, and I'm not going to mention the family name, but they say, so what relation are you to the, X family? And you're like, none. And they're like, so why'd you move here? Why are you living here? Yeah. So, but we become good friends with everybody, and we've got each other's back. And in our industry, as as we alluded to, for those that are listening out there in the radio and video land, it does get somewhat hairy when you travel, especially as this show grows. I mean, I was recognized a few times for my other show, and this one here is growing, and I'm sure I'm pretty distinctive, very distinctive. But it's all right. It's all good. It's all part of the part of the job. Just don't come knocking at my door at 3:00 in the morning.
No, I love my fans, and but I do have to have boundaries.
You got to.
And the boundaries aren't always as stringent as they should be, but
Yeah. Well, the good news is now I don't want to put your fans down. The good news is that most of your fans are teenagers, and correct? Or no?
Actually, that's not true.
Wow.
I have about 50-50 teenagers and women between the ages of 30 and 50.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. See, the problem that I had, most of my fans were, middle-aged, testosterone-driven men who love guns and blowing things up, and God and country, and by God, if you had an opinion other than theirs, you're in trouble. You're part of the, and especially if you're in media. God forbid if you're in media and you have a different opinion of yours, you're part of the, you're part of the problem, or you're disinformation agent. and they make it perfectly clear. So yeah, I had to. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I have a bulletproof vest. I don't have to. That's pretty. That's a wild life, isn't it? Oh, it's a great life. I recommend this profession for anybody that wants to get into it. No.
Absolutely. One quick story, and then we probably should move on.
Yeah, we will.
I went into a bookstore once because it was a small local bookstore, and a friend was visiting and wanted a copy of a book for a friend's birthday party, and I didn't have one, so we just ran in there to see if they had it. And because the way they filed things was to not file them. I mean, it was a really tiny, mom and pop kind of store. So I just went up to the counter and said, "Hi, I'm an author. I'm looking for a copy of my book." And the woman behind the counter screamed this banshee scream I've never heard in my life, vaulted the 4-foot counter, hit me in the chest, knocked me back into stacks of books, and rode me down to the floor. And was on top of me screaming and pounding on me while my husband and our friend were standing there with their jaws kind of hanging open.
Yeah.
And all of her coworkers were like, "What just happened?"
Yeah.
And I thought she was trying to kill me. I really did. I'm like, "What is going?" And finally she became coherent and she said, "You're my favorite author." I'm like, "My gosh, what if I hadn't been? She would have killed me."
Yeah. And your husband, I'd be going through there going, all right, so do I tackle her? Do I, because it's not good business to tackle your fans, but what do I do here? Do I just make room?
By the time the shock got over, he just laughed his head off, and she stood up, and then she picked me up, and then she dragged me all over the store, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh," And when we got back to the counter with a copy of the book I was looking for, her coworkers were making so much fun of her. They were laughing so hard and mocking her, and they were just, people were dying. It was hilarious.
Well, yeah,
but
people
for
do.
Those 3 seconds, It was not funny. For 3 seconds, I thought I saw my life flash before my eyes.
Yeah, people do crazy things. And that's, I guess, one of the things I do have to say, growing up in Tennessee and Nashville, and, I had an office in Nashville, and right above me was Garth Brooks. We were in a building there that was known to have musicians, very popular. That's where their offices were. I remember walking on an elevator and Ozzy Osbourne sitting there. And I didn't know at first it was Ozzy until I looked down and I see the Ozzy on his knuckles. And because he, all dressed in black and just kind of, drooped. He looked like an old man, to be honest with you, at that time. And this is back in the 90s. He looked pretty bad. And, with Garth. So you learn to, we used to go to a place in Nashville. I'll give it a little plug, called Bluebird Cafe. If you're ever in Nashville, go to the Bluebird Cafe, because there's always country music. That's kind of like the local, but the rule is you don't go up to them. You don't talk to them. They will throw you out in a heartbeat. If you even motion that you're going to go and talk to these people, and you can watch some really great shows. But you learn that really, really quick. I mean, I tell you stories as far as that goes, but I promise you, we will definitely get back. We're coming up on the break here, so I don't want to get into anything too deep, too crazy. It was, like I said, I just wanted to break the ice and kind of do a little shop talk and let everybody else that's out there listening kind of listen to this. And also, I want my fellow, the guests that come on the show who write these books and dream and have aspirations of becoming on the, New York selling best times list. Hey, that's a mouthful. I don't even think I said it right, but I want them to know what they're in for, because it is, watch out what you dream for. Definitely you want to watch out for what you dream for. So Debbie, the music, I hear it queuing up here in my ear. So we'll take a quick break. When we get back, I promise you, we will definitely talk about your books a little bit more, and then get into the topic of hand tonight, which is demonology and exorcism. But you're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. Join us on the web at www.themidnightocean.com.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
You're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us here every Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern till 2 a.m., sometimes 4 a.m. It's been one of those weeks. I think something tells me it's going to be another one of those shows. The after party is always better than the party, as they would say. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes for us. And tonight we have a very, very special guest, New York Times bestselling. I have to put that up there because I get it mixed up. My dyslexia kicks in. Dyslexia. Don't want to shouldn't make fun of that. But New York best-selling Times author Debbie Viguié. Debbie, am I saying your last name correctly?
No, you're not.
There you go. I had that professor.
Sorry.
I got the phone call. He's calling me, said that's not her name. That's not. How do you pronounce it?
It's actually, it's pronounced Viguié. It rhymes with risque.
Risque, Viguié. Viguié. So what now is that? What French? Is that what is that?
It's French.
It is French. Oh, okay.
It's French.
Okay.
And it's all my husband's fault because I had a nice, easy to pronounce name before we were married. I was Debbie Reynolds.
Come on now. I mean, yeah, anybody can remember that.
Exactly. Now I'm Debbie Viguié. So.
Thanks. So what?
The upside is I'm the only Debbie Viguié in the entire world. So hey.
Yeah, but the downside of that is that your fans know that too.
Oh, thanks for pointing that out. That's sweet.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. By the way, this is not my real name. No, that's bad. No, this is me. This is definitely me. This is my real name, and everything. So, let's actually get on and talk about what you're on the show for. Number one, obviously, you are an accomplished author. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You have definitely reached the pinnacle of writing. And I'll be honest. I mean, my daughters have read your books, know of you. When I first, when I told them that I was going to have you on as a guest, they were like, "Oh my God!" They were all excited and everything. And so I had to get educated pretty quickly. And I'll have to say, I enjoyed your. I haven't had time to read for pleasure. It's all work related. I will have to say your books are going to be for pleasure. I mean, your books are the ones that I'm going to take. I'm going to take with me when we go on vacation or I'm in the airplane or whatever, and I'll read them there. I'm not going to read them for work. There's a different mindset you have to be into when you read for work versus, for just let your mind go and stuff. So
it's true. I
am making an apology, public apology, right on the air right now. I have not started to read your books. I've been, my kids. It was funny because I didn't have to ask for copies of your books either because they're here at the house. They're on,
you know what? We're gonna have to work something out so I can sign those books for your daughters.
That would be awesome. We would appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm in your neck of the woods. Usually every once in a while, but I don't know. I don't know if you want me being a fanboy. No, I am a fan. All right. So enough of that. I promise all our listeners out there, they're like, this is a comedy hour or what? Are we going to talk about demonology, exorcism? What's going on? This sounds like we're at comedy hour and stuff. So no, let's kind of roll. Obviously you have a genre that you write about. I mean, it's pretty self-evident within your writing and what your topic nature is and stuff. How did you, I mean, is it something that you were always just fascinated with? Did you have a personal experience at a young age? How did you get started into this?
It was pretty dramatic. I was 4 years old, and I was up Saturday morning before my parents was going to go watch cartoons. And I went into our library to grab a book to take with me to look at the pictures and everything. And I was sitting in the library all alone, early morning, no one up, and something called my name out loud. Scared the crap out of me. I ran out of there so fast, you would not believe it. And when my mom got up, I told her all about it, and she, God bless her, she tried to come up with every possible rational explanation for what it was. But when you have something truly supernatural happen to you, you know it in your gut because there's a certain kind of sick feeling that kind of comes with that. And unfortunately, what that kind of taught me was that I couldn't talk about these things with other people. So things like this kept happening to me, and I kind of learned how to deal with it on my own. And suddenly in high school, my mom came to me and said, I have a problem and something has happened to me, and I think maybe you might know how to fix it. And I'm like, oh, really? And interestingly enough, it just about a year and a half ago, I actually brought up to her, I said, and I'd never mentioned it to her again, ever. And I said, do you remember that day when I was 4 years old? She said, and the demon talked to you in the library and I had no idea how to help you. And I'm like, you knew what was happening? She said, I knew, but I had no concept of what to do. I had never had an experience. I didn't know anyone who had an experience. All I knew was I didn't want you to be afraid. And I'm like, wow. And it was kind of like, well, that's validating.
How did
many years later.
Well, yeah. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
But I get what she was trying to do. It didn't quite work out for her or me, but
Yeah, I mean, I had an experience. I mean, I lived in a very haunted house. It messed around at that time with my wife, who's not my ex-wife. It was my ex-wife. Is my ex-wife. But we got married very young. But it messed with her pretty seriously, and she would get mad at me. She's like, because of oh, Jeff, why are you leaving the lights on? And because I worked nights, I worked a graveyard shift at a hospital, and working in a hospital alone, you see some pretty crazy stuff, anyways. And while I was going to college, and she would say, why are you leaving the lights on? Why are you doing this? Why why did you? And it's like I didn't. I turned the lights off, and when I left the house, the TV was off, and the TV would work up, and then when we went through our divorce, and she left and I stayed at the house, I woke up and there was a ghost, a person. I don't want to say ghost. I want to say a person standing at the foot of my bed in an old police uniform, like the old style that you would see in the 50s, with the high boots and everything, standing there at my foot of my bed. 2 days later, I was gone. I left everything in that house.
I bet you were.
I grabbed my personal belongings, and I left furniture. I left everything I possibly could to get out of that house. I was gone because it just, and then of course I just realized we talk about it now, and my daughter who still lives in the area says that the family that took over, that bought the house after we did, the wife actually hired, it was like one of the most gruesome murders they've ever had in that town, where the wife hired a hitman to go in there and kill her husband. And they chopped this guy. I mean, we're talking some serious stuff. It's not like a bullet in the back. This is chopped up demonic kind of stuff. I learned long enough that when you get the presence of demons, demonic nature, you get the heck out. You don't mess around with them unless you're I don't. But of course, here I am on the radio going, if you know of a demonic house or a haunted house, let me know and I'll do a radio show from there. Yeah. But in my heart of hearts, I'm I don't want nothing to do with it.
You're like, oh boy, if someone comes up with one, I'll come do it with you. It'll be great.
Yeah. I am fascinated by the other side, but the more I do these shows and the more I talk, we had a dream expert on and an evangelist on, and we've had some fair, and every one of them's like, Jeff, the devil's real, Satan's real, demons are real. Yep. All people, I'm waiting for those people to say, oh no, no, everyone's like, the devil comes to you in your dreams, demons come to you in your dreams, and it's like, oh, thanks. I was kind of hoping some affirmation here that this is all bunk. But the more and more that the more that I do this, I meet people like you who have real life experiences. And more importantly than real life experiences, you have evidence. I've seen some pretty crazy things that already in the short time I've been doing this, that just, I just shake my head. Yeah. I mean, I'm listening to audios now of EVPs and looking at them, and it's like, it's scary. I mean, it's scary. I'd rather hang out with a bunch of, gun-toting 20-year-old testosterone-filled males than mess with some of these guys. But
well, because they're at least predictable.
They are.
They
are.
Yep. You know what those guys want. You know what they believe. You know what they're likely to do, and not much comes as a surprise.
Yeah. So you had that experience. Now I have to ask, how did you know that was demonic? Just by the tone? I mean, it's.
It's gonna sound strange, but I knew in my soul.
Okay.
I knew deep down, and I was young enough that children are smart. Children and animals, animals can tell the difference between angels, demons, ghosts, all that.
Sure.
They know what's what.
Yep.
And I think a lot of kids can too. And it's like I've seen a handful of ghosts. Those actually scare the crap out of me. I would much rather deal with a demon than a ghost. But it was not that. There was definitely a malevolent intention behind it, and I could tell. And I spent the next several years just terrified because, like, I tried to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and I'd keep my eyes closed because if I opened my eyes, I'd see things reflected back in the mirror, and
wow.
faces and things, and just awful stuff, And I mean, it was very funny because I lived a very idyllic childhood in many ways. I had a very happy home life, a very great parents. I was a hyper happy child, and and yet as soon as the lights went off and the house was quiet, there was just terror. A lot of terror. So it was an interesting contrast growing up in that regard. But,
so you would actually, I mean, even as a young age, when you'd get up, you'd walk through the house and see things in mirrors, and that's whoa.
Yeah, and it was one of those crazy things where I was so afraid of mirrors after dark that even as an adult, I would avoid trying to look at them, if I had to walk through the house when it was dark or whatever. And it was something that I only got over about 3 years ago because it was late. My husband was already in bed. I was taking a shower, getting ready to go to bed, and I could tell there was something in the bathroom with me, and I'm like, and I knew that there's something in the mirror, and I'm like, you know what? I am sick of being afraid of this.
Yeah.
And I turned and I looked in the mirror and I'm like, show me whatever you're going to show me. And the thing manifested, and it was so less frightening than something I could have concocted that I just started laughing hysterically. And I'm like, really? That was the best you could do? That's sad.
I don't. So you're pretty ballsy. I wouldn't be poking the bear. I mean, you're.
Sooner or later, you become afraid of cowering. You become tired of cowering in front of the bear, and so you smack it on the nose. Instead,
you have to stand up. There eventually you do have to stand up and take action. My biggest thing is that, I do the show and everything, and there's times, and the things that I read, and like I said, guys out there that are listening, I get things sent to me in email that is just, most of it's bunk, most of it, but some of it's real. And the real stuff, sets here. I get to the point, because I'm in a studio. I have my studio. I'm waiting. This is really crazy, but I'm waiting. I have my green screen behind me and stuff, but I'm waiting to go back and watch a video one night when I do a show and have something being, appear behind me. So you guys that are watching on YouTube, if anything's walking up behind me, let me know, please. But the other part too is you open the door. And it's like, I have a, we have a pass through kind of bathroom, and it's like, if I open the door, is there someone standing there? Is there a figure standing there on the other side of the door? And I get that feeling that there is someone standing on the other side of that door. And, the other thing too, and my mother's not going to like this, but my grandmother passed away not too long ago. And I was given her cross, and, off of her casket, off my grandmother's casket, and I refuse to hang it up, not because I'm not, religious or that's not the issue with me. I'm afraid I'm going to come home after doing a show, and the sucker's going to be hanging upside down or something, or some kind of it's going to be used. I wouldn't
have that in your house.
Yeah, it's going to be used as a hey, we're here, and you just poked the bear. Because of what you did on your show, because naturally us talking about this invites that type of entity, that type of creature into your life, and
it doesn't so much invite them in as it makes you more aware of that they're already there. is what it does. Sorry.
Yeah. Thanks.
But yeah, and there are items that can, for lack of a better word, be cursed and have demonic things attached to them. I mean, I've seen that before, but I've also noticed that if there are things that don't necessarily, the things that might be perfectly innocent, but that for whatever reason become bugaboos to you, they can certainly use and manipulate those. So if you're already freaked out by that cross that was on the casket, I mean, absolutely that would be a target, because how simple would that be as opposed to trying to come up with something creative to scare you?
Yeah, just flip that sucker around. That's
demons,
easy.
Yeah, they always go for the path of least resistance. The thing that will take the least amount of energy and effort is the thing they're going to do, because why bother, actually working up to something grand and spectacular if the little stuff does the trick.
Yeah. Wow. See, we have a clock in our house that's, has a history. My parents bought it when I was born in Japan, and they bought it while they were in Japan sightseeing or whatever. And, this thing has been known to start up on its own. We've taken it to clockmakers. They fixed it. No sooner they fix it, we get it home, it stops working. And there was one case where we were sitting there at the house, and we were actually talking. I remember as a kid, it was hanging at my parents' house, and we had a really good friend who was a skeptic, and she was like, "Oh, I don't believe in ghosts or whatever," because we had a house down the street that was haunted, and we were talking about it. She's like, "Oh, I don't believe in ghosts." And no sooner she said that, the clock started up ticking. And this is a clock that, like I said, has a long history. That was when I was a kid. I wanted the clock from for my mother. For some reason, I was attracted. It might be just that it was purchased in Japan. I'm from Japan and everything, but that might have been it. But I have the clock with us, and it's done some. It has not started up of late, but it has done some things where, like I said, it has no reason to start. It's broken. We've had it fixed numerous of times. Every time we have it fixed, it will work for a week and then it will stop. And sometimes it will just start up on its own again for some strange reason. And I got it hanging on my wall.
That is odd.
And my oldest daughter's like, hey, Dad, can I have that for my house? It's like, no. No, it's for some reason I'm attracted to it. I am stuck to that clock.
Right.
So
you like it because it has that touch of the supernatural, but in a safe way.
I don't know why I like it, to be honest with you. You're talking to a guy, like I said, when I hear words "get out," I'm gone. I'm not. I watch trying to prep myself for this show. I actually, I'm not I watch, the Travel Channel has the Ghost series on, and I, don't want to give them advertisement. So I watch those shows, and I watch the one where I think their husband and wife, she's the psychic, and they do the investigations and stuff, and she's walking through that. See, when people walk through a house, I feel a deep spirit in here. That stuff to me is like, yeah, whatever. Okay. I feel deep spirits, and I'm, sitting on the beach in sunshine and stuff. But that doesn't get me. But when you hear like the physical things start manipulating and stuff, I think a lot of that now has become so entertained, or it's such an entertainment kind of thing now, that I don't believe those shows. But I started watching those, and I'm telling you, I want to do it. I want to go to a haunted house with an expert, with people that know what the heck they're doing. And I want to expose, because there's so many people out there that still don't believe, to this day, that still don't believe this. And most of them are very religious. Oh, how can you believe? It's like, well, the Bible even says that we have demons, and who do you think tempted Christ?
Yeah.
In the desert and stuff. But I want to experience that with people that know what the heck they're doing, because I don't want to be bringing any of that home with me. But
no.
So I am interested in it, but I will be the first one to tell you, when I hear "get out," I'm gone. You're not stopping me.
Meanwhile, at this point in my life, I'm like, no, you first.
See, that's I just find it amazing that you've gone through all your life with this, some would say curse. I think it's a blessing, because I think you get to see a part of the world or part of the universe, or, you get to see a little bit more. And I think it's probably giving you a tremendous amount of insight to what's going on around us.
In a lot of ways, yes. And it strengthens my faith, even the days it challenges my faith.
Sure.
It's interesting. And my big thing was, I was quiet for so many years because this subject has been taboo for so long amongst so many people. And it used to be that I didn't like telling people. If I told them, I would start shaking, and I'd be, like my body would go into shock. I was so stressed out about trying to discuss it. And I realized, it is the conspiracy of silence is what I call it. It's because people, they don't talk about it because either they don't want to admit that something happened to them or someone they know, or they're afraid that people are going to think they're crazy, or they're just in denial or whatever. And the thing is, the more people I talk to, the more I realize more than half the people I talk to have had an experience. And sometimes, we have friends that I actually sat them down and I said, look, I'm actually publishing a book on spiritual warfare, and this is what I do, and this is the part of my life you don't know anything about, but because we're friends and I actually value your friendship, now I'm telling you, this is your opportunity to run screaming, or you can be my friend still. It's kind of my thing. And they listened, they asked questions for an hour and a half, and then the husband said, this thing happened to me that I've never told anyone, and his wife is staring at him like, are you kidding me? Because of everyone I know, they're the couple that tells each other everything.
Yeah.
Everything about everything. They keep no secrets, and yet he had been harboring this thing that had happened to him as a child and had never told her. So it's the secret that so many people carry that they're afraid people won't believe them, people won't understand. And I'm saying, we need to stop being afraid to talk about it, because that allows the demons to operate and do so many things, because everyone keeps thinking it's just me, and it's not.
Yeah. I think it's more prevalent than most. Most of the people that I talk to, and I have a knack of being able to communicate with people, to talk, have a conversation.
Right.
And it's amazing where, oh yeah, I had this happen, or yeah, I saw this light, or I, saw this, or I heard this sound, or I heard this voice calling my name. I hear that quite a bit, actually. Where I've heard people say, I've had a voice. I've even had that happen to me, where you hear a voice will call my name. And I for me, being, in the audio business and stuff, I think, sometimes your mind, because we live so, I'm under these headsets all the time, and you have kind of like a residual, effect in the atmosphere as well. And, here I am trying to scientifically prove why I hear voices. And, but I've had that happen where you hear, like Jeff, someone will say Jeff behind me, and it's just enough to get you to turn around, but it's not enough for you to disseminate who it is that's saying your name. And, I've had that happen. And now for me, I just go on. I don't even, whatever. I was like, it's left over from the ringing in my ears, or tinnitus or whatever it is, from living under headsets.
Yeah, I've had that experience too. Like I could think my husband just said something or called me and he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's common. That's a common, human thing, especially when you're concentrating on something.
Yeah.
But usually when it's something actually supernatural, you have a reaction in the rest of your body, usually.
Yeah.
Where like you'll jerk, or you'll jump, or you'll kind of feel sick, or your stomach will kind of get queasy, or you'll get a chill. Usually for me, when something unexpected, supernatural happens, when I'm not ready, it literally makes me jump.
Yeah. So obviously the music is playing, the computer is telling us that we're coming up on a break. You're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. You can join us here every Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. till 12 or 2 a.m. I had to think about that. But tonight we are talking with Debbie Viguié. I can never pronounce it. I'm telling you, it's that mind block, and I do have to apologize. But New York Bestselling Times author. And when we get back, we're going to discuss some more about demonology and exorcism. Hold on. It's going to be a bumpy night.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right. You are listening to the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. Make sure you get out there on the web at www.themidnightocean.com. Love to hear from you. We have a new feature there on the web where you can submit. That's right. You can submit your stories and we will read them live here on the air. We'll talk about them. We want, paranormal stories. Love to hear from you guys. Love to hear what's going on, what happened. If you want, after we read, we can bring you on the air if you want to discuss it some more with us. But I understand part of the reason why we're doing that service is to allow you to get your story out there so other people can experience it and understand that they're not alone. You don't know. Maybe your story might help someone else come forward. And right before we went on the break with Debbie, New York Bestselling Times author of the Wicked series and many other books, 40-something books, I think you said, 4 dozen. 4 dozen. Let me do my math here, Debbie.
4
Yeah.
dozen.
Yeah, 4 dozen books and stuff. But I think it is important, like you said, is that we need to let people know that these experiences that are happening to them are not so unique in a sense, that this is a common occurrence.
Yeah, and the more people feel like it's just them and feel alone, the more afraid and unempowered they are. But which is sad, and that's what breaks my heart is the people that don't know what's happening to them and don't know that they can get help.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's the thing. Typically when I think of demonology, demons and stuff, I think you go to a priest, you go to the church, you go to the whatever. I mean, even the Catholic Church has finally admitted that that they have exorcism crews and stuff. And my thing though, I find it kind of strange that it parallels with the new, I think it's Fox or whoever's coming out with those movies or the series Exorcism, which I think is a huge mistake.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think that is a huge mistake. That's nothing but opening up a door, in the people's homes. This is real stuff. I mean, I don't doubt it one bit. This is as real gets, and I don't think you give any entity, a reason to come and visit you.
That's why I always tell people, whatever you do, don't play with Ouija boards.
Yeah, yeah. I did when I was a kid. We had a Ouija board, and I think a lot of it, kids and bunk, and we were, there we go. We went running out of the room, screaming our heads off like little children, and I never touched one ever since. But I believe, there are certain things that that are portals, correct? That you find are portals.
Yeah, it certainly opens you up to it. I mean, I have a dear friend who, her and her sisters, played with a Ouija board, and they thought that a dead relative was contacting them, and really it wasn't. And she came very close to end up being fully possessed.
Wow.
And it's just, it's stuff you don't want to mess around with.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. See, that was also my, like I said, some of this is selfish. I'm be honest with you. Some of these questions are selfish because one of my concerns is the type of show I do here, and as we progress and as we actually talked about it last night. I don't know if you ever heard of a very well-known late night talk show host, Art Bell. Have you ever?
I was on with George Norrie a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So obviously you do know. So, but when you do these types of shows and stuff, and one of the things, and it was true that we saw that over a period of time. I don't listen to George anymore, but over a period of time, because I'm doing my show. But I want to make sure that's perfectly clear. I have nothing against George or anything. It's just I'm too busy doing my show. And I only have so much bandwidth that I can do. But my thing is as you do more and more of these shows, and even with Art, we noticed his shows got deeper, darker and darker and darker. I mean, his shows, and then of course he had the tragedies in his life and things that, go on, and, it just seems like, how much of that is just life in general, and how much of that was, he opened the door along the way and and allowed these things to come in.
a lot of stuff is just life, but like I try to tell people, if you're doing what you're put on this earth to do, if you're making a difference, you found your calling, you're helping people, etc., you're going to get resistance to that. And and a lot of people I help, are religious, and I say, look, if you're following what you think God is wanting you to do, and you're trying to minister to other people, of course you're going to come under attack.
Yeah.
And at some point, you have to learn to look at that and say, that means I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Because if you're not getting attacked, it means that you're not a threat in any way, shape, or form, which means you're probably not doing much to make the world a better place.
Gotcha.
So,
well,
it's a
darned if you do,
on some level.
Well, I was gonna say, darned if you do, darned
yeah.
if you don't, right? If we're doing the right thing, then we're gonna get attacked, and if we're doing the wrong thing, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. You just put me in a quagmire.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right though. Because we do.
The good news is awareness is key, and you can fight back. I mean, that's the great part. And learning how to fight back, learning how to protect yourself, learning how to protect your family, is important. And the more you fight back, the less you have to usually.
Okay.
Well, there are easier prey out there.
Exactly. So what are some of the things that people can do right now with the resources that most people have? I mean, at their disposal. What can we do?
The first thing you need to do is stand up. You said that so well earlier. You need to stand up at some point and fight back. Like I said, a lot of the people I help are religious. They come from a Judeo-Christian perspective. Most of them are Catholic or Protestant. Although, I mean, I've helped shamans, Native American shamans. I've helped, I've encountered, Buddhist demons. I mean, I love helping anybody who wants to help, who wants help. But to what I tell people who have been raised with any kind of Christian background, even if it's not been a strong thing in their life, the first thing you have to understand is that the demons only have the power to mess with you as long as you don't tell them to go away, So we actually are given authority over these creatures, and we just have to claim it. And so what I tell people to do is, if you feel like you're under attack, I say, say out loud, in the name of Jesus Christ, whose blood was shed on the cross for the forgiveness of our sins, I command you to go. And you have to say it out loud, and you have to be forceful, because if you say it in your mind, you don't believe it. And you can get to the point where you can say it in your mind, but it's like screaming it, because you have to put that much conviction and belief behind it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're like, "Oh, I didn't hear you. What?" And they can mock you for it, because you have to believe you have the power to make these things leave the house.
Yeah.
Or leave your work or wherever you're getting harassed. And for Christians, invoking Christ and taking personal responsibility is key. Very, very key. And most people might think to do the first, but they forget to do the second. And that is so important. You have to remember that you're commanding the demons to leave. If you're not taking responsibility for making them go, they're not going to go. And the same is true regardless of your religious background. You have to remember that you're the person that is denying them access, that is telling them that this is not acceptable, and you will not stand for it. And it's about distancing yourself in that way. For people who are really getting attacked a lot, or their families, you can actually go through and bless every room in your house. What I always do is, you put a hand on the wall in every single room, and pray. Do whatever you do, whatever your religious background, would kind of suggest to you. Do a ritual if you're Wiccan, whatever. But do it in every single room of your house. Do not forget your garage, your attic, your basement, and then do it over your cars as well. And this is something, if you're under extreme attack, you might have to do this once a week, once a day. If you're only experiencing very sporadic attacks, you can get down to once a month, and eventually just maybe do a check-in like once a year, like spring cleaning.
Yeah.
But if you're under severe attack, you have to kind of bless your home and bless your space, and be purposeful about clearing it of any unwanted, demonic, all demonic entities should be unwanted, but clearing it of anything demonic often, because you can say go away and they'll go away, and 4 hours later, if you're not paying attention, they'll come back and see how long before you catch them.
Yeah, it's a cat and mouse game. And one of the things that you said earlier that really kind of concerned me is it sounds like the religious items, the Bible, the cross, and all of those, they can care less about that. You can hang that up and do whatever you want to with it. They're just going to look at you and say, "Hey, that's wall art," or that looks good on your bookshelf.
I had a friend of mine actually asked for help with her mom's house because her mom was getting attacked in the middle of the night where things were grabbing her as she was sleeping. And smells were wafting through the house. Smoke was coming under her doors when there was no smoke. I mean, really horrible things.
Wow.
We took 2 demonically possessed crucifixes out of her room that people had given her, not really realizing that somewhere along the line somebody had messed with them. And it was, it's horrible, but at the same time, it makes a lot of sense because Satan enjoys mocking religious things, regardless of the religion even. So religious items are not excluded from being cursed. And so people often think, there's something in the house. They don't think to check a Bible, or they don't think to check, their religious teachings or scriptures. They don't think to check the Quran. They don't think to check the crucifix. And yet you need to be aware that anything can be sullied in that regard.
Yeah.
And you just have to be on the alert.
Yeah, if it's used in a ritual or anything like that, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my grandmother. Well, I don't know the history of it, right? But my grandmother was a very devout, peaceful, loving person. She was the type of person that when we went to her house, you always felt at ease. You're at grandma's house and life is good and the memories were great and everything. And I found it kind of odd. Like I said, I wanted that kind of like like the clock. This is bizarre. I'm looking back at it, but like the clock, I wanted that cross that was on her casket. And of course, my mother gave it to me, and I keep it by my nightstand. I just refuse to hang it up because like I said, my fear is, and my mom's listening to the show, so she's gonna say, "Well, send it back to me." But the thing is that my fear is that object, not my fear. I don't think that object itself has any evil whatsoever in it, because it was my grandmother's, and she was a very peaceful person, and that was her cross. I think what it is that that as I progress through these shows and do more and more, that like I was saying earlier, that will be used as a symbol to say, "Hey, we're here." Hello, you tipped the scales and you allowed us in. And guess what? This is our message to you that we're here. I mean, so there's a part of me that says maybe I should hang it up, and then when I see it do whatever it does, then I'll call you and say, "Hey, look, we got a problem."
I think that would be a great idea. I would certainly do what you can to bless it in whatever way you see fit before you hang it up.
Sure.
Just because you've had, uncomfortable thoughts about it in that way.
Gotcha.
But the best thing you can do too, if you come home and they flip it upside down, the single best thing you can do in that moment is to laugh. And we were laughing a lot earlier in the show, and that seems kind of strange, but at the same time, laughter is a powerful weapon because laughter removes fear. And if you can mock something that they have done and laugh at it and not let it have the effect that it was intended, you take away power from the things that are trying to harass you.
Gotcha.
So it's like me looking in the mirror and realizing that it was ludicrous compared to what I could have come up with, and laughing my head off. That happened 3 years ago. I have never seen a single thing in a mirror since then.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that conversation. I can imagine that conversation where you look at it, and especially with your background and the way you write, and go, this is just bad.
Really?
Yeah, really? That's all you got? Here.
Like, that's pathetic.
Yeah, let's go to page 232 here of this book, and as he sat there with it, and it's like, come on. It's like,
That was
that's all you
literally
got.
like what it was. Even like there was an exorcist book that I wanted to read, and I had gotten it, and I started reading it, and I got scared, which is
Yeah.
so stupid but I still get scared.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to read it because I'm scared, and I don't want to read because he was saying that he was about to tell the story about the scariest thing that ever happened to him.
Sure.
And it became a bugaboo for me where I couldn't make myself pick it up, and I'm like, all right, this is stupid. I can't let somebody else's story scare me, or I can't help people. And so I picked it up and I read it, and after I read it, I was laughing hysterically because he's seen things I haven't seen and experienced things I haven't experienced, but the thing that scared him the most was something that has happened to me so many times I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
I just started laughing, and I'm like, see, what terrifies one person is nothing to another.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, it's spiders, and,
There you go.
and, dead police officers standing at my foot of my bed.
Yeah.
And he
I
didn't
think
say anything.
Everybody should be concerned about.
But the thing is that I didn't get a sense of fear. I didn't get a sense of, malevolence from him. I think what it was is that he was sad. I think he had company, right? With me gone late at night and my ex-wife there. I think he had company. And, the things that he would do would be very gracious. Like I said, when she had to go to the bathroom, she would get up and the lights were on all the way to the bathroom. The bathroom was in the back of the house. It was an old farmhouse and everything. And so the lights would be on for her. And we lived, the house literally sat, and you had to go through a cow fence to get to the house, and there was cows everywhere. And it sat off the road. It was on a 300-acre farm. There was nothing around it.
Right.
Within, literally miles. There was nothing, it was in the middle of nowhere. And I actually think that, I didn't sense any malevolence, but the fact of the matter is I don't need, to be waken up by a, figure standing at the foot of my bed like that.
No, it sounds like a ghost. And like I said, one of our apartments that we had ended up having a ghost that was on the balcony.
Yeah.
I saw that thing and I screamed like I have never screamed in my entire life.
So ghost, Satan doesn't do it for you, but ghost will. Ghost will light you up. That's
right.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'll tell.
That's because there's nothing. Nothing I can do about.
Yeah, what are you going to do about ghosts? Yeah, you already did. It's not like I can tell you. And I'll tell you. As younger people, we tend to experiment with things that we probably shouldn't. And one of the things that to this day that stops, that I don't do drugs. I mean, I don't even smoke pot or anything, and very rarely now as I get older, I find myself drinking less and less. But I had an experience where I was dumb enough to take some hallucinogenics when I was younger, and I woke up with Satan, a little nymph like Satan, sitting on the foot of my bed, telling me that Satan's got my soul. He owns me.
Ew.
And there ain't nothing I can do, but he owns me. That was enough right there. You talk about, you can go, there is no rehab. That was rehab right there for me. I mean, and I've been through,
I would do it.
Look, let me tell you, I've been through the program when I was younger. And had those demons and done those things and stuff. And I'll tell you, that was it for me. I was done. When I woke up and allowed my physical desire for something to overtake me, to put me into that realm. And I think that's exactly what happened. And maybe it was a message from God or whatever, or whoever, message from Satan telling me that, because you've chosen this life and you've chosen to do this to yourself, I now own you. Welcome to the team. Welcome to the big D. And that was enough for me. When I sobered up after doing that, I ain't never touched it since. Never. Because I don't ever want to experience that. I can't tell you how real it was. A lot of people, you're hallucinating, the mind that does it. It was so real. Like I said, I can tell you and I remember reading a book called Beast. You ever read that book? It was called Beast.
No.
It's a classic, and on the cover of Beast, I bet you if you Google it now, that was, and I read the book Beast because I was in a bookstore and I saw the cover of the book, and it was the same figure on the cover of the book as it was that was sitting on my bed. And that attracted me to the book. And that's why I purchased it to read about this lady's story and what she went through. And I'll have to bring it up because it was I remember catching a lot of heat about it because the genre of the book, but I just had to get it. And I'll have to find it and I'll put it up there on the page because I'm at Amazon and I'm putting it in, and it's not anything like what I saw. So I'll have to do that, and I'll put it up there on the page so people can see it and what I saw. And you know what attracted me to your book, you know, The Battlefield Victory, is it, you know, that painting that I had of the book The Beast is similar in the same genre as your cover of The Battlefield Victory. It was kind of like that. And like I said, I saw that thing and I, you know, never, you want to talk about, there was no 12 step there. That was one step and one step only. I was done. Didn't want anything to do with it. And I can honestly tell you, I've never ever since then, because I never wanted to experience that. That was so traumatic to me that I just,
I believe it.
I was done. I've got some people that do want to take some calls, or I got a couple of people in the chat room that do want to talk to you. I do want to, and I think what we can do is, since I control the board, I got to ask the question. I think you know it was coming. You kind of alluded to it in the book. What is the scariest thing? Obviously, someone saying your name at 4 years of age would do it for you. But since then, when you're in your, you know, travels and working with people as a demonologist and everything and doing exorcism, what's the one that keeps you up at night, if there's any?
The scariest thing that ever happened to me personally was it was before I learned how to say my get out phrase in my head and have it be effective. It was back when I still had to say it out loud. And I was traveling and I was asleep. And I was having a nightmare that I was drowning and I was choking to death. And in my nightmare, I realized I was actually getting demonically attacked. I can usually pick that up when I'm having that kind of a nightmare and force myself awake. But I couldn't get awake, and I couldn't get awake. And because I was drowning, I couldn't even say the words out loud in my nightmare. So I just started screaming the words out loud in my head. I finally forced myself awake, only to realize that there was a demon sitting on top of my chest, and it had its hands, for lack of a better term, wrapped around my throat and was choking the life out of me. And I actually couldn't say the words out loud because I had no air left in my lungs and I couldn't speak. So I was screaming it then in my head while I was awake, and it loosened its grip just enough that I was able to say the words out loud and get rid of it. And at that point, I'm like, all right, I cannot have be saying it out loud being the only thing that I have faith in. You know, I've got to be able to do this without speaking clearly. But I got up, I ran. I was traveling, and my father was actually traveling with me because my husband couldn't, and I was going to a conference, and I needed help. And I didn't want to wake him up, so it was a very swanky hotel. So there was actually a phone in the bathroom. So I ran to the bathroom and I closed the door and I called my husband. I'm like, it just tried to kill me in my sleep, you know. And he's like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
So that's the worst that's happened to me personally.
Yeah. See, yeah, he didn't touch me. He didn't, you know, do it. He just looked at me straight in the eye and, you know, gave me a message from the devil himself and everything. But this is the Midnight Ocean, a radio show and podcast. We are talking with New York Bestselling Times author Debbie Viguié. I'll spell it out. It's Viguié. Viguie. And I'll ever say it again one more time, because like I said, it's a mental block that I just can't get over. And I do apologize, but having an interesting conversation with her. But when we get back, we'll continue the conversation. We'll open up the phone lines and let you talk with Debbie.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
You're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and a podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. Thank you. We are at the middle of the show as we sit and talk with New York Times best-selling author Debbie. And Debbie, I'm going to have you say your name one more time, and maybe it might sink into this thick brain of mine.
All right. Viguié.
Viguié.
Yes.
I need to get my and unfortunately tonight, like a really knucklehead, I didn't bring my pad of paper, so Viguié, so I can do it phonetically. Viguié. All right, I will try to remember it. And please, that has always been an issue with me. Was I have never been able to pronounce people's names correctly, especially those that don't like Bob. Or Robert. Hey, I was out on the internet, and I don't know if you're watching the YouTube show, but for those that are on YouTube during the break, I went out and I found the image, the book cover, and it's called "The Nightmare." Is the name of the actual painting by Fosse Henry. That's amazing. I can say his name. So I put that up there on YouTube so people can see that. That was the one that, like I said, that creature was sitting on the edge of my bed talking to me, which to the T. And like I said, that will wake you up, and it definitely did a number on me. So, right before we took the break, like I said, I know there are some people that do want to talk to you. I don't want to take up, all of your time. And can you go for a little bit longer? Are you okay?
Sure.
I should assume that.
Good.
I shouldn't assume, and it's funny because I tell our guests, when I tell them it's a 4-hour show, you're used to it because you're in coast to coast, you're used to this stuff. But when I tell them it's a 4-hour show, they go, 4 hours, what are we going to talk about? It's like, trust me, there is a lot to talk about. We can fill the 4 hours and then some, but, so your most scary, it seems like your most scariest is kind of like the experience I had. I mean, go out there and if you're in front of your computer, Google the nightmare. That kind of seems like what you were experiencing. The fact that he's laying on top of her chest and
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, wow.
Choking me.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't choking me. Yeah. Yeah. He wasn't choking me.
But you got the message.
I got the message.
Yeah.
It and like I said, what, to tell you how powerful it was, like I said, is that, I went through a period of my life and younger and stuff where I was in and out of trying to clean my life up, to get off of the alcohol and the drugs and everything. And I don't have a problem telling people that because that's part of my ministry. That's who I am. That's what's made me who I am today. Most people, they're like, oh, you don't talk about it. I don't care because that was a period of my life that I overcame, and I think it's important that people see that you can overcome those things in your life and do good, and do the things that we need to do and stuff. But there wasn't a program out there that kept me from doing the bad stuff. It was this right here, looking at this guy sitting on the edge of my bed telling me that Satan has my soul. I belong to him. He is my master. That did it for me. I was done. I was definitely done. So, all right, moving on. I'd say, moving on to more happier thoughts, but I don't think. So you work with people, and without, obviously you've got confidence and stuff because this is embarrassing for people and stuff. What is the worst case of demonic possession that you've had to encounter, and were you successful at it? Or I mean, is there times where you just throw your hands in the air and say, look, I can't, you burn the house down?
Burn the house down. It's hard to say what is the worst because things can be so different depending on who's involved.
Sure.
But the one recently where we did take the two possessed crucifixes, or not rosaries. It was rosaries out of the house, was pretty bad. We actually took 2 other items out as well. But so many traumatic things have been happening to the homeowner, who was a very, very religious woman, prays for everybody constantly, and she was just getting harassed and attacked. And you would walk into the one room of the house, which I'd been in before and had bad feelings there, and we walked into it. I'm like, oh yeah, it's literally like you can feel it, like the ooze is almost kind of flowing over you. It's just so thick. There was just so much, negative gunk in that room. And we worked really hard. We cleared as much as we could. We taught her how to, keep it clear. She got attacked again later that same night. Used the tools that we gave her, and things have been going much, much more smoothly for her.
Sure.
But that was pretty traumatic. The longest running one was actually involved a friend of mine in college, and that took 6 months of constant everyday effort, and it was very horrific in its own way. But it was not. Most of it was not as over the top as this other poor woman was experiencing. Some of it was, but most of it was more subtle than that. But like one time I walked into the room, and this painting that I'd never liked on the wall that always kind of bothered me turned and looked at me, and the figure in it, and I'm like, oh, and we're getting rid of that, But there was constantly dark shadows moving in that place.
Yeah.
Things threatening to touch people, and it was a pretty horrific experience, mostly because of how long it took.
Yeah, so you've actually experienced, a lot of people will be, like with my experience on, with drug induced or whatever, sleep induced, whatever. But you've actually been upright, awake, had your coffee, been and you've experienced, physical manipulation. Have you seen like the classic furniture moving across the room, books flying off the shelves?
Yes. Things knocking over, things flying across the room. Yeah, things like that. I've also been pushed, thrown, scratched, bitten. I've been scratched standing talking to a group of 5 people at a convention where I was not there for anything spiritual. I was there as a writer.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I was just standing there talking to people for like 10 minutes, and all of a sudden one of them goes, oh my gosh, why are you bleeding? And I look down, and there's claw marks across my chest that are just starting to ooze blood. I'm like, dang it. Because those, usually, those sometimes you don't realize they've happened until about 10, 15 seconds after it happened, because all of a sudden you're like, why is there pain?
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, things have happened in front of people who didn't even know what was going on because, I mean, there was no reason for them to know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they wouldn't know. I mean,
yeah,
you'd be sitting there, and then all of a sudden something manifests.
Yeah, and they're just like, why? What is happening to you? And I'm like, oh, this is awkward.
Yeah.
I'm like, let me go wash this up, and if you want to really know, when I come back, we'll talk. But yeah, and stuff like, I mean, things will fly around in our house from time to time too, and that's always exciting. The cat doesn't enjoy that very much, but
yeah, I mean, my thing is that things like will disappear. You'll go to get something like and they'll completely disappear, and Sandy will be like, yeah, you're just forgetful. And I am I'll be the first one to tell you, I am a forgetful person. I forget things. But we have a standard, like where we put our keys, right? Or we'll do something like that, or my wallet or something. And it will disappear for a day. And then I will go back, or Sandy will go back in the room and say, oh, you didn't look well enough. And she'll go right back in the room, and there it is. But when I'm in the room, it's gone.
Yeah. I know 2 people that have had serious problems with that in their lives. It's demonic harassment.
Okay.
I've had that happen to me once or twice, but like I know somebody that happens to a lot, and it really drives her up the wall.
Yeah, and then
I believe it.
Well, yeah, I mean the other thing too is that like Sandy, I can tell this. I'll tell this story. Whenever anything bad is going to happen, and i.e. a death in the family, Sandy will 2 or 3 weeks before that, she will wake up screaming, and it's happened like clockwork. She's woken up screaming at night because that person or an image, when you ask her who it is, because now at this point in our lives, I ask her, I was like, what did it look like? Who was it? And she'll describe it like when right before my grandmother passed, she, said it was an old lady. And I never assumed it was my grandmother. My grandmother was healthy. She was old, but she was very healthy. And she said it was an old lady. And then after Sandy saw my grandmother in the casket, after they made her look not like grandma, but like what she looked like when she was younger and everything, Sandy's like, that's who I saw in the house. And she's had those experiences all her life. I mean, she was tragic. She was supposed to go shopping with her aunts were in town when we lived in Tennessee, and she was supposed to go shopping with them, but she couldn't because something happened where she didn't go. Well, her aunts were driving, and both of them, they were hit. Well, one of them died, the other one still lived, but Sandy would have been in the car with them, and the car was hit by a semi and killed, and Sandy would have been dead. And it's one of those things that Sandy says ever since then, she gets these feelings of don't do this. And even that day she had the same feeling, and she came up with an excuse not to go. It's more, she had the feeling of not to go, and she came up with the excuse not to go. And that's what happened. But I've known Sandy, very well documented. She's the sanest person I ever known, even though she's, living with me, I'm kooky as all get out. She is straight-laced, sane, and like I said, about 2 weeks before someone dies in our family, she will be visited by a spirit or something that just terrifies her. I don't know if that's good or bad. To me, that's kind of scary.
Well, if it was helpful, it would be good, but if it helped prepare her. I know for me, ever since I was a kid, I can tell when the phone rings if it's something like that. It just sounds different to me. The first time was when my grandfather died. The phone rang and I stopped and I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah.
And it was just, the phone rang all the time, but it sounds different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand. My husband. My poor husband. He's a scientist. He's an archaeologist. He's an attorney. Very logically minded, and he has to put up with the crap flying around the house.
Debbie, will you tell your friends?
You believe her?
Yeah. Debbie, will you tell your friends to stop throwing books through the living room? Come on now.
Pretty much. People are like, that's always people's first question. Like, oh, you're like the hardcore scientist. Do you believe her? It's like, after what I've seen,
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. No, if you open yourselves up, long enough, and what's really scary is I've got some friends who are like, oh, they're the ultimate skeptics, right? But the things that happen to them, they don't see it, and everybody else sees it. It's like, dude, you can't. You can't keep a girl, it's not that you're a mean person, you're abusive. I know the people, I know that, but, there's, and I believe the guy's possessed. I have one good friend that I'm thinking of in particular. I think he's possessed. I actually do think he's possessed because I've seen him flip on a dime. I mean, the guy's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. And he is but the minute you mention religion, or anything spiritual, I mean, he's the guy that if you handed the Bible to him, he just would lose it. And I'm talking, I've never done it because I don't mess with people like this because it's just not, but I bet you I could probably take a Bible, put it in a gym bag or a book bag along with other books and hand it to him. And like a drug sniffing dog, he would just lose it. No, he would. I without a doubt. And he gets like that. Even, the guy is in his late 40s, never been married and stuff. And it's funny because it's not, but when we talk about it, he's like, why? And it's like, why do you always break up with these girls? She was a very lovely lady, come on, you're not getting any younger here. And he goes, oh, she wanted to get married. And I'm like, you don't have a problem. He goes, yeah, but she wanted to get married in a church. And
oh my God.
Yeah. And he just, but like I said, functionally, yeah. I mean, it was like, whoa. And to me, like it was weird. He just, and it wasn't like he was, I know atheists talk about God more than Christians do. I find I do, cause they're always justifying their position. Yeah. So, but this guy is not like that. It's weird. It's a completely different different scenario. So
thing.
That's bizarre. And so now we've moved from demonic, and that was a good segue into exorcism. So have you ever witnessed, and obviously you exorcise out of the houses, but have you ever witnessed a physical exorcism of a human being?
Yes and no, not in the way most people are going to be thinking of it.
Okay.
I've witnessed there are different kinds of demons, and the most basic common kind are actually demons that we kind of create ourselves, like personal demons, but it's an actual thing. Where you feed a negative habit or belief so long that it actually becomes sentient and kind of starts to control your actions.
Okay.
That is a form of possession, and I have seen people delivered from that, and it's usually violent and painful for them, and can take a few weeks. It's a process to go through, and it's easier for some people to deal with it in that way too, because you can also start to bring in psychological terms and let people handle it in which way they feel more comfortable, as either a mental thing or a spiritual thing or whatever. So I've witnessed my share of that. I've seen a lot of possessed people who are fully possessed by outside demonic entities.
Mm-hmm.
I have never gotten to participate completely in a full exorcism on one of them, because I haven't it's not that I haven't had the opportunity. I haven't been in a place where I was ready to go there yet.
Mm-hmm.
When the opportunities existed.
Yeah.
Because it's an intense thing, and you have to be prepared,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to make sure the people around you are prepared. There's differences in whether or not it's Catholic versus non-Catholic. That's a totally different kind of thing. And even though even if they're both Christian kind of related, it can be a different process. But I've certainly gotten demons who are inside of people to shut up and be quiet and calm down for a while, so that we can try to reach the person inside, and get their help in trying to figure out what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so most of the exorcisms I do are on buildings and objects.
So you've actually spoken to demons indirectly through individuals?
Yes, and it's very unpleasant.
Yeah, I would think, because obviously these guys aren't gonna offer tea and biscuits with you. They're
no,
I mean,
it's a lot of it's a lot of well, it's vile, and
yeah.
it's designed to make you so uncomfortable that you want to run away instead of stand your ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's designed to be that horrific and that disgusting and that disturbing and offensive to you as a person and as a religious person and a human being in general. So yeah, it's like I said, it's awful, and I've gotten them to at least shut up long enough that we can talk to the person. But yeah, I have never had to take one of those cases and take it all the way yet, although I have a feeling that that's coming pretty soon in the very near future. So that'll be interesting. But
Okay.
part of it, too, is, having good teams of people around you, because
Sure.
one of the things I always stress is, while demons are everywhere and they're causing mischief all the time, you have to be very, very careful that when you're dealing with someone who has a real possession issue, that there are medical doctors seeing them, that there's psychologists seeing them,
Yeah.
that because there are so many physical and mental ailments that can cause symptoms that look like you would think a possession would look.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you can treat it any other way, that's then it's not a possession. But if you can't, that's when someone else has to start stepping in. And I also tell people, it's kind of like you have to treat the whole person, because while mental illness and possession aren't necessarily simultaneous occurrences, one certainly opens the door for the other, and vice versa.
Gotcha. So, Debbie, we actually have a caller. Do you want to take a call? I mean, I have a lot more questions, but I want to make sure that the listeners out there have an opportunity to talk with you. Let me see if we can get them on the air here. Oh, it looks like they dropped, actually. So I do apologize to that caller, but it's, we're having a great conversation. And we will, guys, I promise you, I will open up the lines here, but I'm just trying to get some of my, I'm being selfish. I'm trying to get my questions out and everything. So have you, here, they're coming back. I can see them coming back into the switch. But so during this exercise, well, let me wait until this, because this question I think is going to probably require a little bit longer of an answer here. So let me bring the caller in here. Caller, we asked that whatever you're listening, however you're listening to the show, yeah, go ahead and mute it. Say your first name, and you are on the air live with Jeff Norton and Debbie Viguié. I'm telling you. And it's not a hard word. It's not. It really is not. It's just one of those mental blocks. And I set myself up. So go ahead, caller.
Hi, it's Lily calling again.
Hi, Lily.
Frequent flyer.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you. I've got a question, and then you've got a person in your YouTube chat that has a couple of good questions, and I suggested they call in, and he said he's too shy, or she, whoever.
Oh,
so I'm going to ask those questions.
Yeah, no, well, no, have them, while you're on the air, hey, listener there in YouTube, don't be shy. I mean, pull up a chair. We are, I don't bite, I don't, you're talking to a guy that's got a big old hole in his head if you're watching on YouTube. So, I mean, how threatening can that be? And stuff. No, please call in. Would love to hear from you. If you, obviously, if you don't call in, between now and then, we'll, let you go ahead and ask their question for them. But please, don't be afraid. I might look scary, but like I said, I'm wearing an alien hat and I got a hole in my head, so I can't be too intimidating. So go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. My question / statement is, I think that I've been able to, especially over the last few years and interacting and watching things on YouTube, it seems to me that I've seen what I believe to be telltale signs of demonic attachment or oppression, or however you want to phrase it, with people. And it seems like some of the signs are, people bouncing into a rage at the drop of a hat, and obscene language, and what I consider blasphemous language, using the name of Jesus and God as a curse word. And I was wondering if you've come across people, or in your work, what telltale signs, if any, have you come across that you feel are indicative of this sort of evil kind of working through people? And
Sure.
Then the two questions from the chat, the name is T with Pat and Jaleel. Question: as laymen / women, how do we know what we've encountered, ghost, spirit, demon, etc.? Does your guest have any info to help identify being? And the other one is from the same person: are there certain characteristics in people who draw these things to them or experience them once or more? And I've got a low battery in my phone, so I'm going to get off the phone and
Sure.
listen on YouTube.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, caller, very much. And Debbie, what we're going to do is we're coming up on another hard break here, and when we get back from that, we can answer. You can answer that. I'll just listen. I'm along at this point for I'm a passenger on this ship tonight, so it's all you. But once again, you're listening to the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton, and we are speaking with New York Times Best-selling author. That's another one. I have another one. New York Times bestselling author, Debbie Viguié. So I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna have to make a donation to her favorite charity if I mess her name up one more time. But we'll be back, and she'll answer the questions. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned. We'll be back.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
You're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and a podcast. We have a special guest, New York Times bestselling author, Debbie Viguié. Did I get it right?
You did. Very good.
I'm learning. You know what it was? I have to say, for some reason we got an echo. I have to say, my producer in life just stuck their head in and told me that there is nothing more disrespectful to a guest than to not get their name right, and I better clear my act up, and or I was going to get fired. No, seriously, that's so the whole break, Debbie, I just want to let you know, the whole break, I'm sitting there going Viguié, 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 and stuff. So I'm going to go to bed. And the funny thing is now is when I go to sleep at night, I'm going to say Viguié, Viguié, and Sandy's going to be like, come on now, don't be bringing that to the room. But no, before we went on to our break and stuff, the caller, and that was always a question I had is, how do you know you're just not dealing with a mental health issue?
For yourself or others?
No, look, trust me. What's that? What's the Big Bang Theory? I've been tested. I have. I trust. Yeah, you are definitely dealing with a mental health case here. No, I mean when you're dealing with, especially with exorcisms and stuff, because I always thought that, there's well documented. I'll get you to stop laughing. You're gonna get me going. But there's well-documented cases of bipolar disorder. You got split personalities, things of that nature. And then the other part of that too is that you got people who are just jerks, right? Who, they don't, how do I say this? I've always thought this. All right, so in life, in society, we have social norms, right? And if I can have a disease or something that allows me to really speak my mind. I mean, have you ever been walking and you really want to speak your mind, but you just, that you have that part of your brain that stops that communication, says, look, you can't say that. Yeah. You can't grab a baseball bat and smash in the car window in front of you. Just, we think it, right? I mean, everybody thinks it. I don't know. Do you? I mean, have you ever been sitting at a dinner table and wished someone's head explode? Have you ever had that one?
Once or twice.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we're all normal here and stuff. But but there's a part of the brain.
I resent that term.
Yeah. I resent that. But there's a part of the brain that stops you from blowing heads. That's a different thing. But the thing is that I've always wondered some of these individuals who are possessed, if they just said, look, I have an excuse to do what I want to do, to say what I want to say to people, to call people. I mean, and like you said, I've heard the tapes and there's some vile things said, but the human condition, some people actually do think that way, and they're not I wouldn't consider them demonically possessed. I think that they need some help, through some professionals. So how do you determine, hey, look, this is a true possession, true exorcism versus, hey, we need to employ some professionals here?
Well, for one thing, I always urge people, seek medical help. Seek medical help first, middle and last, because, God has given us wonderful doctors and who understand medicine and the mind and everything else, and let's not be stupid and ignore that, But aside from that, there are certain things that really tend more towards possession. And I was laughing a little bit over the profanity because my husband has one of the squeakiest clean images you could ever see, and yet if something really gets under his skin, he swears worse than a sailor. It's like Tourette's. You're just like, dang.
Yeah.
Because I know him, I know that's just him. Although, most people who only see the public version of him would be like, oh my gosh, what's happening there?
Yeah.
So it comes easier the more you know somebody to determine something like that. If it's someone you don't know very well, that becomes a lot harder because you don't know what's going on in their private life, what's going on with their health or their relationships that could be causing frustration or outbursts or depression or various other things. Um, Certainly a violent reaction like you described with your one friend towards anything religious, towards even the mention or the view of religious items is a big warning flag because, you know, most people, I mean, I know a lot of atheists, and most of them don't get violent like that. You know, they don't freak out unless, you know, they're in a really heated debate that is escalated. I mean, they don't go from zero to hysterical in the presence of, you know, religious symbols or discussion. You know, in fact, some of my friends who are atheists, I mean, when the chips are really down and something big's going on in their life, they call me and say, "Hey, could you pray just in case?" You know, and I'm like, as if I wasn't already, but sure, you know. And so that kind of violent reaction is always kind of suspect to me.
Okay.
There are things that, I mean, for me are real strong telltale signs because I've actually encountered people who, I mean, their eyes will start glowing, like, you know, red, and that's just all kinds of creepy, and you know, not the kind of, you know, flash, you know, photography and lighting weird thing, but I mean actually face to face, and their eyes start glowing.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, okay, that's not natural. And when the voice changes significantly, that's also not natural. And you know, there are some people who are great actors who might just want to mess with people, and that's an entirely different thing too. But if there is a significant voice change accompanied by a lot of really violent, hateful kind of thoughts, that's usually a pretty strong red flag as well. Radical changes in behavior. Some of these things can be a symbol of, you know, I mean, it could mean, you know, they have a drug problem, or it could mean that they're having a demonic oppression problem, you know, because there's some things that there's overlap, you know, but like radical changes in someone's behavior, loss of interest in the things that they've always been interested in, suddenly doing or saying things that would have been repulsive to them before. You know, if you have somebody who's, you know, really believes strongly a certain way and suddenly starts acting against everything they believe in, you're like, it's either a sign of some sort of mental break or crisis, or it could be a sign of demonic oppression. You know, these are starting to not if they stop taking care of themselves physically, that can be a sign of depression. It can also be a sign of demonic oppression. So this is why I say in a lot of these cases, it's always good to have, you know, medical help, psychological help. You know, I have friends who are, you know, psychiatrists or psychologists, and I can say, you know, look, you know, here's what I'm dealing with. Kind of help me figure out what I might be dealing with, you know, and that's always a good thing too, to have mental health professionals you can go to talk to.
Well, have you ever had a mental health say, you know, it's the devil? I mean, so there are, and I guess that was a loaded question, because you always think of the most mental health people. You know, everything is mental health. I mean, you know, if you have high cholesterol, it's because of your mental health. If you have, you know, whatever, because your mom or dad didn't hug you when you were a kid, it's all mental health and super ed.
Mental health.
Yeah, it's all. But then it's refreshing to hear you say that there are mental health professionals, people who are trained in the classic science, that are saying that are, I guess, I don't know if hip enough or smart enough to say, call it what it is. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, right? It's a duck, and they say, no, it's demonic possession. Take care of it.
Yeah, there was a fascinating article a week or two ago, I think in the Washington Post, by a psychiatrist who's actually been consulting on exorcism cases for priests for like the last 15 years. Wow. And he's like, yeah, there are some things that are clearly not of this world. You know, you're like, well, that's putting it right out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have one of my best friends is a psychologist, and she's had more than her share of experiences.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Well, for one thing, she has the misfortune of being my friend, but no, I'm kidding. But she is very much aware of the spiritual realm and its impact on people and on their mental health as well. And she's doing a lot of great cutting edge work with reincorporating people's own spirituality and religion into their mental health treatment. Because she said because so many people disregard the health benefits of people, of simple things like praying. If you have a religious bent and you have a problem, if you pray, even if even if something horrible happens and it's God doesn't actually exist, they've done so many studies on the fact that just the act of praying lifts your attitude and actually makes positive changes in your mind and in your body.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they call it there's a God part of the brain that you develop and.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've always wondered about that question. I'm sure that, the clinical, it's like, you would think that, I have these thoughts, I have these things. Most people would go see those professionals first as kind of like the gateway. And then, of course, be referred on to you. Now, going back to the caller's question right before we took the break, the internet's bad. The internet's bad. Everybody talks about that. And so, well, I'm all about, like you said, you don't play with the Ouija board, right? You don't give a vehicle.
Right.
I'm not going to watch the exorcism show because I'm not going to give a vehicle for the devil into my house. And I'm sorry. I'm sure my kids will sneak off and, Dad, you mean, well, the kids, they're all on their own now anyways, doing their own thing. So, and you can't, but the thing is there's certain things that I'm not going to watch because I feel that it's inviting. The internet is a evil place you don't have to go far. I remember as a kid, and this is a great example. And this is why I am for so many reasons, I am anti-porn and, get that out there, especially on the internet, because I think it exposes people to evil and it exposes people to the dark side. Like I said, when I was a kid, we'd all snicker and stuff, sneak into the grocery store and see the magazines, and you're trying to look under the covers because they're covered up. Well, now it's in your face. I mean, you can see anything you want to, all the way from the, whatever to the, disgusting whatever. And I'm a firm believer that when you get engaged in that behavior, all you're doing is weakening your spiritual side of who you are. And when you weaken your spiritual side, you allow, I'm not saying, you watch porn, the devil's going to show up on your doorstep. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying though, is that it does weaken like your immunity, to his influences on your life. And, because I've seen some people do some stupid things because of their addiction or whatever to porn. I mean, I've seen people lose jobs because they go to work and they watch it on the screen or, while they're working. And, I've seen people driving cars. I've been on airplanes where people are watching porn in public or on a train, and it's just crazy. I mean, are there things on the internet that you feel are kind of like I said, like gateways that you just need to avoid altogether?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would agree with you about porn, and it's like, what you think on all the time, it becomes more and more your reality. And if you're obsessing on those kind of things, and especially the more deviant it gets, it's only a matter of time before temptations start to pile up to do some of those things. Or at least to just let it ruin your life, like you said. You become so obsessed with it, you can't, not watch it work, and you get fired or whatever. I think one of the things that is really, really dangerous is people like to play around with the occult. And they like to, scare themselves with it, or, giggle about it, or pretend it's real, or wish it was real, and they're dabbling with things they really don't know anything about, and they're opening themselves up to all kinds of nastiness. There was I know some people who practice, things like Wicca and things like that, and that is an actual religion. It's not just, playing around with a bunch of occult things. You know, there are rules and guidelines and things that you do and things that you don't do, and that is entirely different than someone just trying to summon entities or gain power for themselves or throw spells or curses on other people. I mean, I've been the victim of a couple of those things before. I was going through a really bad, really hard time, and with some, just some stuff and a lot of stress in my life, and a neighbor who had been dabbling in the occult, and I did not know it, and didn't really know her, just would say hi at the mailbox kind of thing, had noticed and wanted to relieve my stress, and she ended up summoning something that she thought would take away sorrow, and instead what it did was attack and cause the person such overwhelming grief that it was insane. And it actually attacked me, and it took me hours to figure out what was happening.
Yeah.
I'm like, and you kind of do the whole, all right, get rid of that, and now please, for the love of all that is holy, don't mess with things you don't understand.
Yeah.
Even if you think you're trying to be helpful, because the bottom line is you don't get what you're playing with, and you're opening yourself and the people around you up to nastiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, reality here. I mean, you're dealing with creatures that have been here since the beginning of time for all practical purposes.
Yeah.
They know every game. They know every they know. I mean, you are an ant to them. The only thing is that,
and the hubris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said, well, the only thing is that God
want to control.
Yep, and that God, thank God, and God, what obviously being as smart as He is given us the one thing is that we do have and you said earlier we have the power over them, and He's given that to us. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's like spider infestation in my house. I can call the Orkin guy or whoever and wipe it out, but it doesn't mean I won't. You don't get spiders. They're going to appear, and that's
Yeah.
for me, it's all about
certainly
preventive maintenance and not have spiders, but
exactly. I was exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's all about trying to keep them from getting there in the first place.
Yeah.
Because once you're open, it takes years of damage control to try to get to a good place.
Yeah. And it's mass. I mean, I've seen a lot of people, like I said, through drug and alcohol addiction, the whole, I mean, what is the goal of, this might, a lot of people say, well, Jeff, that's an obvious question. I mean, truly, what is the goal of a demon? Is it to kill you? Is it to turn you away from God? Is it to make you do things for him or them? Or, I mean, what's the ultimate goal? Or do demons, depending on the type of demon, depending on what kind of entity you're dealing with, have different agendae?
The ultimate goal of any demon is to thwart the will of God. The way that they're accomplishing it is by keeping you from him, whether that's keeping you from a relationship with him, keeping you from following the path that he would want you to be on, ministering to other people, so that is their goal. And like
Gotcha.
I said, the people that don't have to worry as much are the people that, are not doing what they should in the first place. They're not changing the world. They're not even changing their next door. They're not even reaching out to their neighbors.
Yeah, I don't think Adolf Hitler was possessed. I think that he was, I think they were like,
I think
we're not going to spend any reason. I can see the demon, caretaker up there saying he's doing good on his own. I think he's got this covered. Leave him alone. Let him just roll with it. We
don't want to scare him.
That's right. Yeah,
Exactly.
Leave him. But then the thing comes back to me, and I'm just asking this question: is that if God knows that you're inflicted with a demon, God knows this because God knows everything. If he knows that you're inflicted with a demon, isn't it kind of antithetic in the sense that, the demon is just wasting their time because your actions, God knows that your actions in your physical form and when you were on the earth were not of you. And thus, I mean, I believe God is a forgiving God. So God would be like, it's kind of like someone who is sick or ill, you're not going to be upset with them because they're sick or ill. You see where I'm going with that? So it kind of seems counterintuitive that demon's trying to keep you away from God, but God knows that you're possessed by the demon and knows that you're doing it. I guess maybe God's saying, you didn't fight strong enough for it or whatever, but isn't there some mercy, some forgiveness there at the end, at the end of your, stay on this earth? How do you feel, or do you actually believe you're possessed, you're away from, if you die, let's just keep it this way. You're demon possessed, you die demon possessed. I mean, what's your feelings about that? How do you think that that's rendered? Or could you even answer that? I mean, that might not even be a fair question, to be honest with you.
I think, all right, my personal beliefs are, that's kind of moot. I think I'm one of those people that believes if you've turned to God once, you're his regardless of how much you screw up the rest of your life.
Good.
And ideally he doesn't want you to screw up the rest of your life, and you shouldn't be happy with screwing up the rest of your life. But I think for anyone that has ever actually, reached out to him, called him Father, made that connection, whatever, I think there is mercy and compassion.
Okay.
I think demons try to keep people from ever having that one moment of connection.
Gotcha.
And more importantly, I think they try to keep people who've had a moment of connection from ever influencing or helping anybody else.
So it's more of okay. So yeah, I get it. Now that makes sense to me, because number one, keep you from coming to the glory of God, right? That's goal one. Goal number two, to keep you so messed up that you can't be a good testimony or good ministry to the glory of God.
Exactly.
And that you can't influence anybody else around you. Bingo. All right. With that, I can honestly say I can go to bed at night knowing I am not possessed. I can tell you because my whole life is from going forward. And the reason why I do these shows, and it doesn't take you long to realize where my positions are. Now we do some edgy things here, but I've always talked about, ministry and letting people know. And what's really nice about this stuff is that we can talk about this and still be strong in our belief system. That's what's awesome. We talk about aliens, demons, all of this stuff, and because they're out there. I mean, you can't deny it. The Bible clearly says that there's, the devil. I mean, the whole.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It makes me sick when people are like, there is no sin. I'm like, really? What Bible are you reading? 'Cause you're happy to believe that there's God, and some people even talk about angels, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a soapbox, but I get really upset because I also write, in all the myriad things I write so many genres, I just drive my agents crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I also write Christian horror. And I wrote a Christian vampire series, and people are like, oh, and I'm like, look, if you have read the Bible, then you should be embarrassed that Christian writers are not on the forefront of horror.
Yeah.
Because you cannot find any more horror than is between those those pages.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and the fact that we're not leading the way in writing cutting edge horror is just embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But yeah.
Crazy.
But yeah, one of my closest friends, I mean, she was nearly possessed. She was being groomed for a pretty nasty position on the other side, and was just into all kinds of really scary things, and on her way to, I don't even know what Satan had in mind for her. The glimpses I saw terrified me. Mm-hmm. And when she became a Christian, that was when the real battle began.
Yeah.
Because she and I were, and finally she became a Christian, and then for 6 months he tried to kill her. Because it was one of those, if I can't have you, I'm going to kill you, because I don't want you on the other side doing what you're going to do, giving the testimony.
Well, the ministry. I mean, can you imagine the ministry there? I mean, the fact that, hey, I was there, I seen it, I lived it, I've been in your shoes, and there's only one way out, and this is the way, and it's through, Jesus, and it's through your Savior, and it's through, recognizing that, and that he died. I mean, I can understand where the devil would be pissed, offended.
It was a nightmare. Yeah, that was, but it pissed is fine.
Okay. I got to watch my mouth too. I mean, it's not, I hope I hope there are young people listening to the show because I think it's very important, but I also got to watch out that, maybe too young of ears, and we don't want to give them any, but I'm in today's day and age, gosh, I mean, come on and stuff. But we are at Debbie, we're at the top. We got one more. Can you go one more hour?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll take a break, and we are speaking with New York Times bestselling author Debbie Viguié. 2 for 2. And when we get back, we got more questions. If you'd like to give us a call, we will open up the phone lines in the next segment. So we wrap this up.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
You're listening to Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. Join us on the web at www.themidnightocean.com. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube page if you're watching us on YouTube. That helps. And also follow us on Facebook. If you haven't joined, for those new listeners out there, we get new ones every day. Every day. Make sure that you join the Midnight Listeners, all one word, the Midnight Listeners. It's the best way that we can communicate to you. You can also follow us on Twitter. If you go to the MN Ocean, you can hashtag TMO guest, TMO host. We'll get back to you and everything. We make ourselves very accessible here. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, is that we are a show that brings you great quality guests like the one that we have tonight. New York Times bestselling author Viguié. And we also pride on ourselves of giving you accessibility to our guests through our phone system. You can call in at any time. And like I said, we're going to open up the phone numbers here in a few minutes. Get your questions ready as we continue on with our discussion. Debbie, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
You are such a trooper. I appreciate you staying on and everything. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's like, I was during the break, I was going back through the hall to grab myself some coffee. And of course I'm sitting there going, please don't come around the corner. Don't come around the corner. Stay wherever you're at, because I could see, and of course I'd be screaming, you'll hear me screaming back into the studio and see a blur go across the screen and all sorts of things. My mind, I am a creative kind of guy. I mean, you got to be in this business. And so my mind runs rampant. Just runs rapid.
Suddenly I know what I'm doing with my Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
I'll be at your house.
You'll be at my house. Let me give you the address and stuff. Yeah, no. I will tell you this though. I don't live in homes that aren't newly built. I don't do it. Every house that I've lived in ever since we lived in the farmhouse in Tennessee has been, obviously apartments, but yeah, they've been all, I lived in high rises and it's, to me, I feel safe. Like when I moved to Chicago, I always had, you're in a high rise with 20 or 30,000 people living around you. And, so I guess you have a little safety in numbers. I know the devil don't care, but I always felt secure in my weenie little way and everything. But, every house we've ever owned has been new construction. People haven't had time to mess it up. No murders. I do ask those questions, by the way, when we moved into like rental apartments and stuff. Has anybody died here? Who were they? Has anybody been murdered here? And if they say, yeah, I don't even want to know who they were. I just, okay, see ya. I'm not even going to do it. But death, I can deal with that. But yeah, but like I said, our house is newly constructed. It is not built on an Indian burial ground. I can tell you that. So these are some important things you got to ask yourself. But, and the other thing too, is like I said, I don't give the devil opportunity to come into my life anymore. I used to, but nowhere near. Even music, I stay away from music. I love the classics, as you're growing up. And I was fortunate enough that my parents didn't say, oh, that's devil music, the Eagles or whatever, when we were kids growing up. I thank God they weren't that crazy and everything with it. So I appreciate that. But, I watch even the songs that I listen to these days, or music on the radio, all the new stuff, obviously, because I'm old, it's junk. But the old stuff, and here I am listening to the Eagles and Witchy Woman and all that stuff. But no, I try not to invite it to begin with.
No, I understand. It might be of interest to you depending on what you listen to in the day. But since he became a Christian 10, 15 years ago, there is one song on every one of his albums that is kind of like a spiritual warfare song about defeating Satan, and that's Alice Cooper.
Oh, really?
He has, yeah, he has the most incredible spiritual warfare songs. And I got the opportunity to meet him at a convention 2 years ago where we were discussing lots of different interesting things. He goes to church with one of my agents, so it was just fun. But yeah, people look at my place like, Alice Cooper. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that, because they have the imagery and stuff, and they don't realize. And that's actually a great testimony. Is a lot of the guys that were back in the day eating bats' heads and stuff like that are very religious, or at least very spiritual. And there is I even, like I said, I walked into Ozzy when he was in the heyday, during the time that I saw him in Nashville, and I can tell you, he doesn't look. I haven't seen a picture of him recently. But when I saw him, and I know that he was in the throes of his addiction, and I'm not here to take his inventory at the time, but I do know during that time frame, he looked scary. I mean, he did not look. It's almost like he was there, but he wasn't. It was like a shell, and you can tell that. I mean, do you see that? And when you're dealing with people, it's almost like when you look at them, they're a shell. They're not really there. They're not, they might be there physically, but they're just a shell. They're lifeless in that regard, or soulless.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that.
See, that messes with me, because that's, you're dealing with real, I guess the comfort is this: if I don't believe it, or if I don't see it, then it doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, I don't have to then look at the other side. Look at it the other side. If there is no devil and there is no Satan, then is there a God? And if there's no God, then I don't have to worry about where I'm going to go when I die. I just go somewhere.
Right.
And I think it kind of, the inverse of that. And I ask all my guests this, who are of spiritual bent and also are involved in this type of work. When you die,
yes.
They always say, when you die, you see the light. Do you believe in going towards the light or going towards the darkness? It's a trick question. I'm just letting you know.
I was gonna say, I don't honestly know what it's gonna be like when you die. I mean, it could be that you see a light. It could be that you just wink out. It could be that you see someone welcoming you. I don't know what it's going to be like, so I'm going to say that.
Yeah, the reason why is there's some biblical scholars I've been reading out there who are saying that you actually don't go towards the light. You actually go towards the dark. And the reason being is when you go to the light, you are then turning your body over to the judgment of God. Whereas if you go to the dark, that allows you to kind of reboot and start over. Because in the biblical sense, you can spend, as part of like your purgatory, right? You can spend 4,000 years basically by yourself. Where
but that's the Catholic view.
Okay.
If you believe in purgatory.
Well, okay, yeah, but I'm just saying is that there's some, and you're absolutely right. No one knows, right? I've yet to meet anybody. Well, I've met them, but I don't stay in the room long enough to talk to them and ask them. And really, I don't think they really know either, because obviously they're still here, right? They haven't left this plane. Right. They're still in this, but I just always ask that, I'm going to the light. I'm taking my bet, and the Bible talks about the light and the light of, Lamb and all this stuff. So I'm going towards the light. That's if that's presented to me. Hopefully, God willing.
I think either you'll be completely unaware, or there'll be something comforting. I mean, I've known enough people who found something comforting and managed to say something to their loved ones, or had a smile on their face. I know my grandmother was so terrified of dying, and I mean, she was really for someone as religious as she was. It kind of confused me a lot, but she was so terrified of dying. And when she got really close to dying, I could actually smell my grandfather in the room.
Cool.
And my grandfather had passed on a long time before she had, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I think he's kind of standing at the edge waiting for her and trying to get her to let go of the fear,
Yeah.
and let go. Because she was so sick and so miserable and, just hanging on when just only out of terror.
Yeah.
That was the only reason she was hanging on. I mean,
yeah, I actually find that, and I find it perplexing too, that your most religious people are the ones that want to live forever, or trying to do the things that they need to do to live forever, and it's like you would think you'd want to be the first one in line, for me, and I agree. I spent many years, like I said, when I was in going to school, I worked in a hospital. I started out as a phlebotomist, taking blood, and then I worked as an ER scrub tech, or an ER tech, and then as a scrub tech, kind of worked my way up. And so I've been around a lot of tragedy, a lot of death. And one of the things this is morbid, but I enjoyed doing, especially when I worked a graveyard shift, because I was going to school during the day and on the weekends, is I would go up to like ICU and, and watch people as they were passing. I mean, I witnessed, it's not like I would gawking, don't think that, but
right.
When you're around death, you see it, right?
Right.
And yeah, you could always tell the peaceful, and you do get a sense when the spirit leaves the body, and it's hard to describe, and you do get a sense of when that happens, and stuff. And then I've experienced death through tragedy, where I had a case. Well, I can talk. Yeah, HIPAA will allow me to. I'm not going to give names, but where you had a mother that was in a motor vehicle accident. Her kids were sent to Vanderbilt. The mother was there talking fine. Everything was great. The kids unfortunately didn't make it. When the phone call came into the emergency room to tell the doctor, the mother didn't hear. She didn't hear the phone call. And it felt like something reached in, and this is just my feeling, reached in and ripped her soul right out of her body. And she died.
Wow.
She right there, she coded. And that was the feeling that I got. And that, that stuff sticks with you, and it was like she was up, she was talking, she was coherent. She's obviously asking about her children. We couldn't give her an answer because we didn't know they were life flighted to Vanderbilt, and they were working on it, and then we were working on her. They ordered the labs, do all the chest x-ray, doing the due diligence for her. And the phone call came. I remember, vividly. It's one of those things that just sticks with you. And the phone call came in to inform the doctor that that the children passed, and she didn't hear it. I didn't know what was on the phone call. I just, phone call, people working on her, and she coded. I mean, literally just coded right there on the table instantly. But the feeling that I got at the time was like something just reached in there and just yanked her. I mean, just dragged her out of her, and that's maybe, bizarre or whatever, but that's the feeling I got. To this day, it still kind of haunts me that,
I believe it.
Yeah. I mean, it still sticks with you and stuff. And like, people have stories, and that's one, we are going to do a show eventually with healthcare workers and stuff, and they can share their experiences, and, you hear about it all the time and stuff. So, wow, it is. But as you guys can see on the YouTube channel, if you'd like to give a call in and talk with Debbie Viguié, author, best-selling New York Times. See, I get one right and I get the other one wrong and stuff. Give us a call at 312-588-1200. Love to hear from you. That's 312-588-1200. So tell me about your Psalms 23 series of books.
Absolutely. It's about a church secretary and a rabbi from the synagogue next door who keep tripping over dead bodies together. It's very fun. It's a very fun series, even though they sound like cozy mysteries, but they have more of a thriller edge to them, but there's a lot of humor as well. I mean, I get people off of the first book, The Lord is My Shepherd, saying things like, I feel a little guilty laughing so hard at a book about a serial killer. I'm like, well, then I did my job, didn't I? You know, that series, it's got 12 books out. There's going to be 23, and it has my most crazy rabid fans. I mean, none of, I do fantasy, I do all kinds of stuff, and the Psalm 23 mysteries are the ones where my fans are hysterical waiting for the next book.
Yeah.
I did a contest and asked people, because I know people reread the entire series before each book comes out. I said, all right, I'll give a prize, blah, blah. To whoever has read the book, the series, the most times, the entire series. And the woman that won had read it 58 times.
So how do you? All right. So here you go. Now, see, I'm gonna get cynical on you or whatever. How do you know she read it that many times? How do you know?
Because she's one of the ones that has asked me questions. Because I Easter egg things in all the books that are stuff that's coming out later. She's the one that started asking me questions about tiny, minuscule events that happened in one of the books. That she said, so is this blah, blah going to come up later? And I sat there, and for the life of me, I had no idea what she was talking about. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm tired. Which book was it in? And she told me, and I had to go look it up.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, sure, yes, that is going to be important later.
You're writing the notes down.
Yes.
Well, you do kind of, you should have known, you do cater towards the Trekkie kind of crowd, right? The minute you said you go to come, so, those guys can tell you how to build the starship. I'm a firm believer, if we want to do interstellar travel, just Google just needs to give a couple $1 billion to some Trekkies, and they can just build the starship. They've already figured it all out. I mean, no, you can't take that flux capacitor here and do this. Yeah.
And anyone who is a church secretary who gets hold of the books freaks out and loves them.
Oh.
I mean, it was so funny. There was this one little spat, on Amazon that I stayed out of, briefly, where someone was saying, "Oh my goodness, you were very cynical about what it's like to work in a church behind the scenes, and people wouldn't really act like that." And all of the church secretaries who read the series jumped on and was like, "You don't even know."
Yeah, people are people. And they're gonna act no matter what setting it is. They're gonna act the same way. Yeah.
I worked for a couple of years in a church, and that was the craziest job I ever had. But it is a very fun series. People love it, and they're good mysteries, and they're safe mysteries. So there's death and mayhem, and people die, but there's no sex, there's no swearing, and so I have a lot of I have a lot of generational readers where it's grandmother, mother, daughter are all reading the books,
sure.
And then they're getting their neighbors to read them. So, Schrödinger. My cat.
Yeah, I heard Crusade. I was like, oh, there we go. So where do you come? I mean, when you're writing and everything. I mean, because some would say, well, especially with what you do, it's got to influence some of your writing style. But I think you made it perfectly clear that some of the things you've seen, especially with demonology, doesn't even hold a candle to some of the things you write about. But where do you get your motivation? I mean, does it just come to you? Is it, do you, I mean, how do you get your motivation for some of these stories?
I get inspiration from everywhere. I mean, I can hear a cool song lyric and it'll spawn an entire story idea in my head, or sometimes do you ever people watch accidentally in a restaurant? There's somebody at it. Yeah.
You do it all the time.
At a table who's just acting bizarre.
Yeah.
And they're so bizarre, and they just blow. And finally you're like, okay, what is their story? And then you start imagining their story in your head.
Yep.
You make it up for them.
Yep.
Everything.
I do. Well, see, what I do is I do voiceover. So Sandy will tell you, I'm notorious for doing voiceover. So I'll be sitting there, and I'll start acting like TV. I'll put it on mute, and I'll just start like voiceover stuff and be the actor. And people, even in life, I'm like, I'll look at Sandy, we'll be eating dinner, and she's like, shut up. She's like, just shut up and stuff. And because I'll start doing voiceover of people's lives, sitting there at the dinner table out there in public. It's like, someone talking, and, they're just out of earshot, so you don't hear the conversation, but their lips are moving, and they're in a heated discussion. And I am notorious for that. And just coming up with off-the-cuff stuff, I can't, I did one the other day, and just had her going, it wasn't Sandy. I was actually watching a YouTube video, and the volume was off of the YouTube video, and I was just talking to it, and she came in, and she's like, who are you talking to? And stuff. I said, what's this? And then, I went into my, Mystery Science. I don't know if you ever watched Mystery Science Theater where the robot and stuff sitting in there critiquing the movie. I love doing that. I always thought that would be great to bring back and do, the voiceover stuff. So that's my big thing. Well, we are getting very long, and I know I appreciate it. It's outstanding. I'm not trying to get rid of you, but if this is your time, if you want to jump off, you're more than welcome to, or you can stay on a little bit longer. I probably have a few more questions for you.
Okay, I'm here till 2.
You're here till, well, there you go. I can tell you, we have an after party show that goes on. It seems some of the people that they'll wait until the guest gets off, and I think it's a competition amongst those in the YouTube world where they'll jump on and try to keep me up, 2 more hours, or last night we were 6. But so do you find? I mean, we talked about religion and how it plays in your faith and stuff. Have you ever worked with a case in which you had a religious person? Because I would think that would be the most dangerous, because they're knowledgeable on both sides of the fence. That a religious, like a person that was very religious, not a person, you talked about you had a friend that was that was, I don't want to say sketchy because that's wrong, but was completely on the dark and then came to the light and had to dealing with the devil. But a person you would think like a double threat would be someone like a priest, a fallen priest, or a fallen minister, someone that was very knowledgeable in the teachings of Christ that unfortunately was possessed or was taken over. I mean, have you ever ran into that scenario?
I haven't run into that specific